Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it is
Definitely a thing for just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Today I've got Stihl on the other end of the line, and I'm going to welcome Silvio. How are you going?
I'm very well, thank you, Gary. How are you?
I'm good. Have you been in a dungeon before?
Only at the current recording booth that I'm currently in, but it has a lot more toys than what yours does, by the looks of it.
Your dungeon looks just a little bit scarier than mine.
I promise you it's just this corner, and it's only for visual representation at this stage.
I was kind of wishing that I'd made the trip down to Victoria to be in your dungeon.
Yeah, we have plenty of cool rooms in the office. If I had to say this is probably the least cool, then yeah, that'll give you a good incentive to make the trip down.
Well, I know when we were talking, I actually made a quick trip down to Victoria. It wasn't going to work in to actually come and see you face to face, but we'll have to do that another time.
Lock it in. I'm all for it.
I will. We'll get back in touch on that one sometime soon. But
Wonderful.
in the meantime, when I contacted Stihl and they put me in touch with you, I was like, this is going to be really good because we both have some enthusiasm for motorsports.
Absolutely.
So, everybody listening to this, we're going, oh no, here goes, Gary's going to talk about motorbikes again. We can't do it. I've done one episode where we talked about motorbikes for 45 minutes. But you drive a Subaru, or is that not a current vehicle that you drive?
That is my one and only heartbreak in the world is when I unfortunately sold my Subaru. So I used to have a 2005 Subaru WRX. Was my first non-P plate car, let's just say,
Your
with a
first
P
true
plate.
love?
First true love, correct. And yeah, it was one of those cars where, like a passion project, you do everything, yourself and with friends, and you build relationships, and much like yourself, you build, an identity from your passion. And it was one of those cars that helped me build a Facebook page and get sponsors and, have an awesome relationship, with the community. And then, converted it into a full track car and used to tow it around all around Victoria, racing stupid speeds on shady tires, let's call it.
Nice.
And then, I guess in the peak of COVID, I thought, well, I'm not using it. Do I really need it? Should I mature in life? And unfortunately, I said yes, and I sold it, and have been regretting it ever since. But
Now,
that still hasn't taken the passion for speed away.
You've got facial hair that helps to give it away a little bit, but you're not as old as me, and I wouldn't say I've matured.
It might be like a bell curve or like an inverse bell curve where you mature for a bit and then you realize that was a mistake and then you come back down a bit.
Yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing with motorbikes is that the bell curve for fatalities on motorbikes is often men in their mid-40s and early 50s.
Right. So maybe just own it in your 30s and 60s and then just skip that middle bit.
Definitely don't ride high-powered motorbikes when you're in your late teens, early 20s.
Yep.
And then don't think you can skip it for 20 years and then go back into it when you're in your early 40s.
Yep, fair enough. I'd imagine moped sales are going to go through the roof for that specific demographic.
Well, I've got two bikes. I've got a straight-out dirt bike and I've got a sport bike. And the temptation I've got at the moment is to move towards an old man's bike and go for an adventure bike.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on my mind as we speak. I'm currently looking around going, oh, what should I do? Should I sell off the bikes I've got or keep them and convince the wife that N+1 is the perfect number?
I mean, what is it? You can fit, is it 3 bikes in the space of a car? So if you sort of think about it from a real estate perspective of the garage, so long as they all fit in the same spatial envelope, there is no real qualms about it.
Well, I've got a shed in my backyard that is 12 metres by 12 metres.
Perfect.
And it houses a lot of lawn mowing gear. But as I get older, I'm going, I need less lawn mowing gear in my shed and more motorbikes.
Correct. One day, someone is going to come up with an innovation to put a mowing deck in between just a front wheel and a rear wheel with some handlebars in the middle. Once you have that down pat, you can combine all your passions in one and make the passion make your money.
Yeah, there's a guy in the US who's he self-professed redneck, and he goes by Ginger Billy. Look him
Oh,
up.
my God. I'm concerned.
Yeah, you will be. After you've watched it, you'll have to issue a proper still disclaimer.
Have you ever seen those bicycles? And let me, I guess, preface this and say I'm not advocating this by any stretch, but the bicycles back in the day where they used to put a cylinder mower on the front wheel, a death trap on wheels. But yeah, that's what it's sort of. I'm picturing that in the back of my head.
There's some interesting things he's done. I'm pretty sure he did a dirt bike with the mower on the front forks, and then he did a little car where he put the mower decks under the back of the car. So instead of rear wheels, it's got the mower decks.
Oh, goodness. Wow. Look, I've
Anyway.
seen some crazy modifications in my time, but yeah, I think I might steer away from this guy for a little bit.
It's full redneck, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't really come to talk about all this stuff, and that's fun, but we want to have a look at the brand Stihl. And I've done a few interviews with different brands over time. I've been in podcasting now for just over 2.5 years, and I've talked to a few different brands, but it's taken me a while to find the best contact for Stihl, and it looks like I've got the best person with you. So
I'm always here to help.
Stihl's been in Australia for quite a while, and I think most people, even in the industry, because keep in mind my podcast is aimed at people who are doing lawn mowing for a profession.
Mm-hmm.
Within the industry, you'll still find that most people's first memory of Stihl is their dad buying a chainsaw.
Absolutely. Stihl Australia was the first subsidiary on the global perspective.
Wow.
We were, I guess, launched, for lack of a better term. We were created in 1971 in a factory down in Bayswater, Victoria, and we actually did machine assembly ourselves. Now, when I say ourselves, that was before my time. I'm sort of speaking on behalf of the business. And it's really great because we still have some of the legacy team members, not from 1951, but who were part of that assembly line before we moved moved our warehouse to where we are today.
Yeah.
So those listeners who would remember the 009 Stihl chainsaw, that was assembled here in Australia using global parts.
There you go.
And then, as you can imagine, economies of scale and efficiencies in production and everything sort of took the assembly section away, the need for assembly in Australia, so that we can maintain, I guess, a reasonably priced product. And now our Knoxfield warehouse is also our primary head office, but we also have warehouses in Yatala, Queensland, and Malaga, Western Australia as well. And recently we celebrated our 50-year anniversary, and that's for those that are on the video portion of the podcast, they can see the 50-year mug.
There you go.
But no, it's been a great venture ever since.
Yeah, you'll have to send me one of those mugs.
Will do. You'll see me hiding it in my jacket pocket.
When I was organising this interview, I mentioned to you that I acquired an older Stihl chainsaw, and I said it was an 88.
Mm-hmm.
I sent this chainsaw to my brother's place because my brother's living on 100 acres and he cuts a bit more firewood than I do. And I was like, you'll use it more than I will. I've used it half a dozen times it's got to be 10 years.
Yeah.
So I was like, you use it and maintain it, and I'll just borrow it off you every now and then. And
yep, correct.
last week he messaged me. He says, "Oh, what's this Stihl chainsaw? What model is it?" And I said, "It's an 88." And he said, "But it's not, because the decompression lever is in the wrong place for an 88." And so he said, "There's no badge. The badge looks like it's fallen off, but there was a silver sticker on top that's just silver. It doesn't have anything written on it because it's that old." And he did a bit of research and he came back and he said that silver sticker actually says 84.
084?
Yeah, 084.
Yes. So the colloquialism, the 88, for example, we used to, when we first introduced that range of saw, it was that large 100cc plus chainsaw with models like the 084, 088. And then as we sort of refined the product range, and keep in mind this was decades ago, but as we refined that product range, the 084 sort of didn't really have its place in the Australian market. Australians are much like Texas, where bigger is better. So just give me the biggest thing possible and I'll just do the smallest job with it. So that
084, it's got almost the smallest bar you could put on it. You'd expect it to be a competition saw because I'm pretty sure it's a 20-inch bar, whatever it is. It's a really small bar for an 084. Yeah. And the first time I used it, I cut a a fallen tree for a friend that had fallen in their creek, and it just cut through straight like butter. Just the weight of the saw, and they're a heavy saw, just
Yeah.
dropped straight through.
The good thing about the bigger saws is, a blunt chain, I guess a chain on a chainsaw is the same as tires on a motorbike. If you have
Yes.
ball tires or whatever, it's the exact same as a blunt chain. And no matter how hard you press a throttle, you're not going to do anything. So I guess one of the benefits of using those larger, heavier saws is it tells you straight away if your chain is blunt or sharp, because the weight of the saw should do the cutting for you. If you're still having to apply pressure whilst holding on to 5, 6, 7 kilos worth of chainsaw, something's wrong. Stop and reconsider.
Oh well, yeah, and like I'm used to saws where you've got to slow down. You got to run it full revs, and you just got to be patient and let it work
Yep.
its way through, because it's a smaller saw. And it grabbed that thing. I think they're close to 120 cc's of two-stroke.
Yeah,
is-
so the 088 went to the 880 or MS880, and now it's the MS881. So as the product is evolving, it still keeps that heritage 88, hierarchy, if you will.
Yeah.
And then, as emissions laws change, as requirements for ergonomics and safety requirements and standards around the world change, the product just evolves.
Yeah, and using the 84, when you start that machine, you know that you're hanging onto a beast.
Correct.
And the ergonomics, the vibration dampening, the muffler, all those sorts of things are historic. They've not been updated.
I think back in, I want to say it was 2020, if I'm not mistaken, we released the MS462 CM. So 462 used to be known as the 46 because it was the 046, then the 460, 461, 462.
Yeah.
And basically it was one of those situations where one of the features was it had a lightened flywheel. So you think to yourself, what does that actually benefit? But when you hold onto the historic saw and you press the chainsaw and the whole thing sort of torques on you, like it has that gyroscopic effect. And then you use the new machine and you can sit on full revs and it's comfortable. Like you actually don't feel as though you're being manipulated by the saw to do the work. And I guess when you compare them side by side, you realize, holy cow, we've come a very long way in terms of ergonomics to get where we are.
Yeah. Well, before I got that 084, I went to a friend who's a tree lopper and I said, hey, I need to buy a saw. What do you recommend? Husky, Stihl. I didn't really look at other brands. It's just like the two biggest known brands. And his flavour at the time was Stihl for the bigger saw.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as big as the 084. It was a 261 that he recommended. And at that point in time, the 261, don't ask me what the numbers or letters on the end were, but it was 261, and it was one of the early auto-tune saws.
Yeah, so
it's great.
And that's the thing. We design it to make your life easy at the end of the day. All of our saws that have, I guess any one of our products that has a letter C next to it, that stands for comfort. So it has something in there to make your life easier. Now, on your 261, it'll have a piece of rubber in the starter handle, and therefore making it a lot easier to start, especially on a cold day, so you don't rip your fingers off.
Yeah.
And then the M stands for our M-tronic, which is that, as you mentioned, the auto-tune system, which basically helps calibrate the saw so that it's always performing at peak rev. So when it's under high load, or if the air filter's clogged and not clean, and limiting airflow, it will adjust that air fuel ratio, making sure that you still perform at optimal performance at any time.
Yeah.
Again, to keep you working in the best case possible.
Well, it's interesting you say that about the comfort level there, because the old 084, when my brother contacted me last week to work out what model it was, the reason was he assumed the decompression lever was broken. So he was looking to get a new decompression lever. And what he worked out was that there's actually an elastomer stretchy bit in the starter mechanism that had broken.
Okay.
So even with the decompression working properly, it was just about ripping his fingers off to try and start it.
Right. I mean, look, it really does go to show that I'm not sure how often that handle was changed in the years of ownership, but
not in my ownership before that.
No, it really does go to show that if you look after something, it will look after you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So I guess that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. I mean, our founder, Andreas Stihl, in 1926 said, a chainsaw is only as good as its service. So, we are quite fortunate that the business has been built around the dealer network who are trained and educated and know how to repair almost everything and anything.
Yeah.
And then at the same token as well, we offer spare parts for every single component that we introduce in the country. So yeah, thankfully you can go back to your Stihl dealership and get the spare part.
And I think that dealer network is one of the reasons why Stihl is the most known brand for chainsaws in Australia, because you go anywhere and you can find a Stihl dealer.
Absolutely. We have over 600 dealers around the country. So yeah, we're very fortunate in the fact that generally, no matter which suburb you're in, there is one within half an hour to where you live. At the end of the day, making your life easier.
Yeah. And we're going to cover quite a bit of interesting Stihl product and heritage today. And I want to be very clear and transparent. We were talking about this before. I'm not sponsored by Stihl. Not that I wouldn't be objecting to that, but we're not going there. What I'm talking about is the whole brand bias. I have a bias towards Stihl. From the time I started my business, I was buying Stihl products and I was a Stihl fanboy because good products and good dealer network. And I actually had a problem with my Stihl dealer early on in the days, and they stuffed me around with other products, and that left a real bitter taste in my mouth. I went and bought a Husqvarna instead of a Stihl, and then I came back and bought some more Stihl products after I decided the Stihl dealer was going to treat me with a bit of respect. So I have an affection for Stihl, and so that is a natural bias that I have towards the Stihl brand name. But we want to look at, particularly for my listeners, the most of the product range that they will be interested in is going to be the Stihl handheld whippersnippers, blowers, hedge trimmers. They do use chainsaws. I think there's now some interesting options when it comes to the battery gear, because you've got mowers as well as a few other products that come in there. And I think one of my favourite things to talk about, even though a lot of contractors don't go down this path, is robotic mowers.
Yep.
So when I started business, one of the key tools I picked up was an FS85R.
Yep.
And I think at that point in time, you could buy an FS85R. That was the expected product to buy if you were starting a gyms franchise. So,
yep, absolutely.
And I've still got that FS85R. It still runs.
Yeah, absolutely.
14 years ago, I bought, and I bought it secondhand.
Oh, wonderful. No, look, you're 100% spot on. It's funny when, you go to a party or you meet new people and they say, who do you work for? And you say Stihl, and it doesn't click at first. And you say, Stihl, the chainsaw company. They go, oh yeah, now I know what you're talking about. But what's ironic is we sell more blowers and line trimmers than we do chainsaws, yet we're known for chainsaws. So
yeah,
you're 100% right in terms of, I guess, having that entryway into the market. And, as the whole world transitions to battery, not just outdoor power equipment, but, things like excavators and side loaders and cars and trucks and everything else, it still doesn't take away from the fact that we built our foundation on petrol. We, amongst other market leaders, against other brands, we are the market leader when it comes to petrol handheld equipment. And at the end of the day, that accolade is only, I guess, feasible with the support of our dealer network. At the end of, you starting a business and not to speak cheekily, but let's say you start your own lawn mowing business, you may not know what you need. So who do you speak to if you can't speak to a competitor? Because you don't want to go to the guy next door and say, hey, I'm going to start my patch in your patch. What do you recommend? Because they're probably going to tell you to, I don't know, go away.
That's actually improving at the moment. I think when I started 14 years ago, it was very much a case of that's the competitor. Don't talk to the competition. But nowadays there is a really supportive community for people in Australia with lawn mowing contractors, and it's really easy to go, hey, what do I charge? Or what do I buy? What tools? So that has changed. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, awesome. And that's the thing. You seek advice from professionals. So I guess my only job as product manager is to transfer my knowledge to the greater good, to the dealer network and to end users and our sales team, because there's no point in me holding on to it. I'm not going to publish a book. So yeah, the more they know, the more they can help you, and consequently you can help other gardeners and contractors and as well as end users. So,
and if they listen to Aussie Lawn Stars, then they get all of that advice straight up from a podcast that's easy to listen to.
It's always those things when we do a product demonstration or a training session or whatever the case may be, we tell people, look, you might know 90% of what we're going to tell you. And that's more than fair enough. But it's the 10% that we might mention that you think, oh, I didn't know that. That might save me money in the long run because of whatever reason.
Save your money, save you chopping a leg off for various different things that are really important.
Yes, you only have two, and they don't tend to grow back.
That's
these
it.
days.
Yes. Yeah, I've tried to chop a couple of things off. I've still got all my fingers. I asked somebody I spoke to a couple of weeks ago. He used to work for One Stihl, and anyone who works for a steel company, it's like, hold up all your fingers and show me you've still got them.
Thankfully, we can all still count to 10. But no, and I guess that's that whole consideration. You know, we always have a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke about our owner's manuals and purchasing steel product. You know that they come the size of a Bible, essentially.
Who reads that? Sorry.
Well, we hope everyone, but
yeah,
it's quite ironic. We're going through a marketing campaign at the moment, and there's a large focus on safety. And they say, "Oh, where do we get this content?" It's all from page, I think, 7 to 11. Any product you buy from Stihl, it'll tell you how to fell a tree, how to clear land, how to use a hedge trimmer, how to use a blower, what to do on a slope, what to do on a decline, what to do on flat ground. Yeah, so they're a wealth of knowledge. And when I started my career in outdoor power equipment back in a steel shop, that's how I learned. You start reading owner's manuals. So when people say, hey, I've got to fell a tree and it's in compression and tension, you go, oh, I remember that page. It's whatever it is.
I would say the other thing that is really worth considering there, if you're going to use a chainsaw, go and join your local RFS or SES, or find a company that's a tree lopping company or a lawn care company where they can train you to use a chainsaw properly as well. Because the owner's manual will give you the instructions, but that experience, and you're giving back if you join RFS or SES as well, you're giving back to your local community, and you get the experience, you get trained properly, you get to learn.
Yeah, you're 100% spot on, Gary. It's the SES and the local fire authorities and emergency services are a major benefit to this nation. And you're 100% right. If you can steal their time for a little bit, shout them some lunch, shout them some beers, whatever their depot may need, and see if you can pick their brain for a little while, then you'll have a wealth of knowledge to walk away with.
Yeah, they always appreciate being shouted a meal, especially when they're busy.
Oh, yeah. It's the winds that we had through Victoria a little while ago, and may have hit the Central Coast as well, I'm not sure. But driving through Gippsland down in Victoria, you still see trees all over the road, and you think, my goodness, it was 2 months ago, not to date this podcast, but it was quite a few months ago, and the poor guys are still working their way through it. We're quite fortunate that we work with a lot of these government agencies, and some of the photos that we get sent where they're doing tree clearing on one side of the state, with heavy wind, and then on the other side they're doing bushfire clearing because half the state is on fire for some reason. So it's quite impressive to see the work that they go through.
Working in this industry, you hear people complaining, and it's like, okay, have you just started in the industry, or have you forgotten what it was like 2 years ago? Because over the course of the last 4 years, we've gone through some of the worst bushfires, some of the worst droughts, some of the worst floods, and everything that you can imagine from a season or anything outside of what is seasonal, Australia cops the worst of it.
Oh, mate, do you remember 2015 and 16, where we barely saw a drop of rain for that whole time? Everything was just yellow. And you think,
oh, yeah,
if nothing's growing, you've got nothing to cut. And if you're not cutting, you're not working. If you're not working, you're not buying my product. So what are we doing?
Yeah, we literally reached the point where, and this should be common knowledge, but again, if you forget or you weren't there, you don't think about it. If you're out there with a ride-on mower and you're doing an acreage and everything is crispy, then the RFS starts issuing warnings and saying, hey, you really should not be using a mower in these conditions, because the chance of you starting a fire through a spark is really high.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think most ride-on mowers, tractor mowers, not ZTRs, but tractor mowers have the muffler at the front near the hood cowling.
Yeah.
If that's the first thing that's touching tall grass or hits a hay bale or something that's combustible, then I hope that there's a fire extinguisher nearby.
Yeah, that's it. And I think I'm sort of reluctant to say this, but I'm going to do it. It's the one frustrating thing in our industry with Stihl products is the spark arrestor. There's a number of two-stroke Stihl products, you buy them, and if the shop doesn't pull the spark arrestor out within the first few weeks, you find that it's getting blocked up, and then all of a sudden the machine's not running properly. And people ask this question all the time. I've got a near new Stihl product. It's not running properly. And it's like, hey, your spark arrestor's blocked up. And the go-to thing is just pull the spark arrestor out, chuck it in the bin, which I know is totally against what the purpose of the spark arrestor is.
I mean, yeah, it's in the name, right? It arrests spark, and spark causes fire. So the last thing we want is to, I guess, be advocating for that. But I guess one of the primary reasons why those spark arrestors tend to get blocked is there's a few actually. So primarily it happens on blowers. And
Yes.
you know more than anyone, when you're using a blower, I think 70 to 80% of the time, you're not actually on full throttle. It's
Right.
generally half throttle or just letting it idle and push air along.
Yeah.
And if a machine's not running at full revs, it's therefore not burning the oil in the two-stroke mix. So no burnt oil means it has to go somewhere, and it gets stuck behind the spark arrestor. Now, I guess one way to make sure that doesn't happen is using a high-quality synthetic two-stroke oil at 50 to 1 mix, like our Stihl HP Ultra, or alternatively, we have Stihl Moto Mix, which is our pre-mixed alkylite-based fuel. And that just avoids that issue altogether. But I understand as well that, people have different ways of working. You want to make sure that you get the best for what your applications are. But
my local Stihl dealer, that last time I was there buying some whippersnipper cord, he's like, "Oh, do you need anything else? You want some premix?" And I'm like, I buy 200 litres of fuel at a time. I'm not buying premix. Sorry.
We sell it in 205-litre drums.
But he did talk about buying the Stihl, the top end Stihl two-stroke oil, and I know that's one of the things that if you buy a new Stihl product, it's like, okay, you buy the, which one is it to get the extended warranty? It's the
for our non-commercial products, it's a Stihl HP Ultra, so
That's
our
what I
fully
thought.
synthetic two-stroke oil.
Yeah. So that's common knowledge in the industry is buy the Stihl HP Ultra with your new tool.
To be honest with you, it's a fantastic oil. I mean, I have to give full credit to the team in Germany. There's 500 plus engineers and R&D team members, all looking at every single facet of our products, and having worked with the lead chemist on our oil projects. Yeah, it's really interesting and fascinating to understand what goes into making sure that these products are the best possible, not only for the machine but also for the user.
Yeah.
As you know, when you're hedge trimming, and especially if you're using a petrol machine, the exhaust is generally somewhat in front of your face at the best of times.
And that's a really good segue over to battery tools, because that's the gateway drug, the hedge trimmer.
Absolutely.
Going into battery.
That's that whole consideration. We have a lot of large key accounts, national accounts who use the premix fuel, and bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment is that it's apprentice-proof. You can't mix it wrong. You can't seize it. You can't ruin the machine because you mix it wrong. So it is that simple methodology of just pouring it in and away you go.
Yep.
And especially because it's an alkylite, it's not just normal unleaded fuel. It doesn't have the aromatics that generally have carcinogenic properties. So I'm not saying it's healthy for you, but you're not going to get that dizziness that you traditionally would have, using a standard 91 mix.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, you're right. In terms of battery, I think hedge trimmers and long reach tools, like a long reach pole pruner or hedge trimmer, we find that people generally transition to the battery products via that gateway, if you will.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're so light. You press a button, you pull a lever, and away you go. There's really no excuse not to give it a crack.
Yeah. Well, I think the HS, is it the HS 45 or 46? I can't remember the model number. I think it's HS 45.
The petrol model,
the hedge trimmer that a lot of people buy. I have one.
Mm-hmm.
And I know countless times I've been using that hedge trimmer, and then afterwards I've gone, has that exhaust contributed to a bit of leaf burn? Or has, it's the vibrations and the fact that it's right near you when you're hedge trimming. And even though that's a handheld tool, it's not one that's got a pole on it or anything like that. You end up with that really close to your ears, that ringing two-stroke. And I've told so many people, I'm like, okay, if you switch to battery, you avoid two issues right there, and you don't have an engine idling when you let go of the trigger.
Correct. I mean, the great thing about the battery hedge trimmers is no matter what the brand is, it's just a spindle moving a camshaft, and that's all it is. So we find a lot of people they have that runtime anxiety going to battery,
Yeah.
which is fair enough. We're all in a transitional phase, and I guess this is our job is to reduce that, or I guess reduce that barrier to entry. But nevertheless, with the battery hedge trimmers, you don't need this huge, heavy battery to run the machine, because even our smallest battery will still run it for hours on end.
Yes.
And yeah, it just makes it so nice and lightweight. And like I said, you press a button and away you go. But
Yeah.
we going back to the oils, we also offer a biodegradable chain and bar oil. And what we're noticing a lot of people are using it for is on vineyards, and a lot of situations where, when you're using a chainsaw, everywhere you walk, it's the same as pouring oil on the ground, because
Yes.
there's always oil coming off the chain. So, by, I guess, offering those biodegradable and sustainable solutions, yes, you are trimming a tree or cutting down a tree or a hedge or whatever, but at least you're not making a mess of everything else around it.
When I was at the local Stihl dealer, I bought chain oil, bar oil, and he had the two options, the synthetic one or the mineral oil. And I said, what's the benefit? And thankfully he was trained by Stihl, I guess. So he was able to give me a good answer. And I chose not to go with the biodegradable one. I would always choose biodegradable first over a non-biodegradable product. But in this instance, I'm going, okay, I use my chainsaw once every 3 or 4 months. So therefore the mineral oil is going to help preserve things better.
No,
Look after the tool.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully the oils have spouts in them, so you don't necessarily have to leave the whole thing open
Yes.
to free air. But yeah, I guess it is that whole thing. We offer the three options. We have, Forest, Synth Plus, and Bio Plus, and yeah, we have basically mineral, synthetic, and a biodegradable rapeseed oil-based chain and bar oil. And at the end of the day, that's why we offer three options. Everyone's different. There's not one for all.
Well, if I was using my chainsaw on a daily basis, I would go straight to the biodegradable.
There you
no
go.
questions.
I mean, there's always benefits for no matter one which you choose. And at the end of the day, so long as you're using oil, our biggest issue is when people don't use oil and then say, oh, my chain's not lasting very long. You think, really? I wonder why.
Speaking of which, there's a couple of interesting tools there, and props to these, even though they're not commercial tools. A number of the commercial guys are buying the little 25s.
The HSA 25 hand shears.
Well, the hand shears and the little saw as well, the little pruning saw.
Yeah, the GTA 26, it's by far our number one selling tool. It sort of shocked us globally with how popular the machine was going to be.
Well, I would have expected homeowners would be buying that tool because it's so handy and foolproof. They don't have to worry about maintenance on that. It's just, I can take it back to the shop and buy another chain, or I can, squeeze a little bit of oil on the chain before I use it, and off you go. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, with Mother's Day coming up, it's probably you'll see a spike in sales as it comes on through. No, it's a fantastic unit. I remember we launched that, I believe it was in 2020, 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it sounds right.
And yeah, it was just exponential. It was so popular that globally we had an issue where a lot of scam websites would take the image and then say, buy it for $50, and you bought it and you ended up with that hand. What do they call it? The hand saw, where it's a piece of chain on two handlebars.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that. There was so many scams at that point in time. But before that tool came out, the little hand shears, I bought the little hand shears, and that was really popular on Instagram. So they were actually in short supply as well initially because they were so popular. And I haven't bought the saw, but I know when the saw first came out in the contractor community, people were saying, have you got one? And they're like, no, can't get it. It's out of stock.
Well, no, so that's part of our AS range of battery tools. So we have the pruner, the GTA 26. We have the hand shears, the HSA model.
Yeah.
We recently released a handheld vacuum, which we're noticing a lot of tradespeople, it lives in the car. It's something to, your car is your office for 8 hours of a day generally. So tidy office, tidy mindset, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, I guess we're evolving that AS range continuously. I think a quarter of my day-to-day tasks are just focusing on that range by itself. So there's a lot of very exciting stuff.
That chews up a lot of your time when you've got so many more commercial products to play with.
Yeah, thankfully, the portfolios are split between, I guess, we have professional, commercial, and then wheeled goods and new technology.
Yeah.
So thankfully, a lot of the the larger professional gear. And although we know everything, one of us can go on leave and the other one can take over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of ironic where, someone's playing with a large, whatever commercial machine, and then someone busts out this tiny little handheld saw, and there's more attention on the little saw than there is on the big saw. But
Yeah, I can imagine. But I think if we cover some of the commercial products that lawn contractors are likely to use, I know because I don't use as much Stihl these days, if I start talking about Stihl and I don't have the product knowledge, I've got a couple of listeners that message me straight away, oh, this is what you need to know, or this is what Stihl's telling us. It's like, great, I wish I knew more because I don't, and I've missed out, but I don't have a problem with that. It's great. The interesting things that I've seen come along recently is particularly in the battery products, but in the lawn contractor space, a lot of people have started looking at the new dedicated whippersnipper that's battery powered and the new chainsaw that's come out. It's the MSA 300, I think.
yeah, we recently launched what we call the 135 range, and they basically, look, we'll talk top level to some degree, but they all share the same, I guess, power head design. And then you just have the different attachments, sort of like what we did with the chainsaws back in the day, where you had the 08S motor and then you just plug different, line trimmers or hedge trimmers on it.
Yeah.
It was the good thing about that motor is it is quite interchangeable, but it's also the first of our machines which has an air filter stuck onto it. Because the motor's so powerful, it does suck in a lot of air. And if there's debris, if there's dirt, if there's whatever, to avoid the need for that being sucked into the motor, there is an air filter. So it's kind of ironic thinking, I've got a battery tool, but it has an air filter. How does that work?
Well, you use air cooling over the motor, right?
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
If I start doing water cooling, then it's a whole different kettle of fish we need to worry about. The 135 series is, I guess, a simplified way to help, especially the commercial contractors, transition to a battery alternative, because the power output and the runtime is either near as enough, makes no difference, the same, or better.
Yeah.
So as the world is transitioning to battery, not saying we won't do petrol, we definitely are, but we're helping people on that journey of making that transition across. And I guess alleviating some of that need. I mean, when you started your business, the cost to entry, by the time you get yourself a line trimmer, a blower, a mower, potentially a ride-on, there's however many tens of thousands of dollars tied up depending on what you get.
This is a bit of a debate that's going around at the moment, is how much money do you need to start a business? And I talk to people about, just go and use your mum's mower, just go and buy a Bunnings whippersnipper or whatever if you need to do it cheap. But then once you get started and you start going, okay, I need to be quality rather than cheap, that's where you start looking at going up to those models. And like you say, the 135 range is the commercial range. And I'd like to do a quick comparison there, because a lot of people will, in the petrol range, they'll use an FS94. Mm-hmm. And I've got several of them because I thought they were that good a machine.
Mm-hmm.
Not without their faults, but they're a great machine. So I've got several FS94s. I've got an FS131.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go up from the 131 to the 240 or 250 model, right, in the petrol range. Yeah. So the FSA 135 is going to be comparable to probably the 131 in the petrol range, I'm guessing?
Correct. That, in terms of work output and what you would expect to get out of a tank, if you will, or a battery charge, if you put them side by side, you should expect to get roughly the same. So
when people start going, okay, I want to use an FS94R for the petrol tool, can I go to the FSA? Is it a 94 or 95?
It's a 90. So 90. That category right now, it's funny, when it comes to our model numbers, sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't.
That's what I found. And that's one of the reasons why when I started looking at battery, I was like, oh, and this is 2018, I first looked at battery and I was like, oh, I'm not convinced Stihl's got it all together here yet.
I recently had the opportunity to host one of our product development managers from Germany who looks after chainsaws. And we sat down in the car and I said, you need to explain the model numbers. Why is this, and why is that? And he goes, oh, Silvio, don't even bother. Like, they make sense from the first number, as you go up in the first number, that's generally the series and the work output you expect. Yeah. But outside of that, as you start getting into finer numbers, it's not worth considering. So our mowers, make perfect sense.
Okay.
So, for example, RMA 443, for argument's sake, the first number is the series, so it's a 4 series.
Okay.
And then the last two numbers is the width of the deck.
Yeah. Makes
That
sense.
makes perfect sense. Don't ask me about other products.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't compare, because that's what I was hoping to do, was to go, well, the FSA and the FS are comparable in those numbers, but they're not really. And that's what I looked at. Going back, and I'm going to poke hole in Stihl's battery range when I first looked at it, 2018. The FSA 90, I looked at that and I thought, that's not going to suit my needs. And to go up in the range meant using the umbilical cord, and I was dead against using the umbilical cord, and I've heard other people complain about it when they'd used it. So, my bias, even though I was a Stihl fanboy, took me over to Husqvarna at that point for the battery tools. So now you've got the FSA 135, where you put a cartridge battery in it and you don't have to use an umbilical cord. So sorry if I refer to that. I don't know if you've heard it referred to as the umbilical cord. It's
This
the
is the
affectionate
first time in
term.
my life I've heard it referred to as the umbilical cord, and I'm trying to restrain my laughter. That's a great acronym.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
So it's one of those things. It's just, what do you do with it? I don't want an umbilical cord if I've got to use a chainsaw, because I see that as dangerous. I don't want the umbilical cord if I've got an employee using the tool, and this is the technical details but I smell. And if I've got I've got a young female working for me, and I say, hey, put this backpack on, and A, she doesn't want me to touch her, fair, and B, it stinks like me.
Yeah, and it's set to your height. I imagine you may be different heights and shapes and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you have to adjust the strap, look, you're 100% spot on. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, we can't release every single option in one hit. It's one of those sort of things you generally release a minimum viable product, gauge market feedback, and then improve. Because I don't think any business in the world has just released everything as a perfect one fit for all option and then somehow succeeded. So thankfully we can leverage, the almost 100 years of petrol machinery and the, amazing engineering team in Germany to get the best minimum viable product out there. But I guess to use your words, the umbilical cord system, it's part of our backpack range, the AR.
Yes.
By the way, going back to the naming, if there's an A in the name, it's because it's stands for accumulator, which is German for battery. So that's a little top tip.
There you go.
R, I forgot what the German word is, but it basically means carry system. So
I'm pretty sure it means umbilical cord.
Umbilical, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, one of those benefits is, if you're using a blower, they are very thirsty, whether it's petrol or battery or anything. They demand a lot of energy behind it. And I like to use the acronym of Formula One. It's super easy to put sticky tires, reduce weight, and put the biggest motor you can in a vehicle. The hard part is making it cut through air.
Yeah.
So a blower, to get the performance that you as a landscaper and a commercial gardener needs is hard. Now, we can make it perform, but then you need the energy content behind it to last for the duration that you need it to last for. And that's where that backpack battery and cord comes into play, because one is to manage the energy content of the battery and the tool so that you can do the job. But the other thing is you as well. I mean, you're young and fit and you can go all day without any issues. But there are some people that can't hold on to a cartridge battery for, an hour or 2 hours at a time, or have the energy to go and swap it over. So it is about finding the right tool for the right person. And we are quite fortunate that we do offer quite a few options.
And I've seen a number of people use the backpack batteries and rave about how good it is, all day runtime, or, don't have to worry about the cartridge battery going flat because you're doing some heavier work, all those sorts of things. And that's been a downfall for me with the biggest battery on my Husqvarna tool. It's 9.4 amp hours, I think it is.
Right.
I can flatten that in less than 15 minutes if I start doing overgrow and heavy work. And otherwise, it can go for 2 hours.
Correct. You're 100% spot on. It's quite ironic talking about runtime on battery tools. And personally, I might get flamed for this in the office, but personally, I hate runtime as a number. I think it means nothing to no one. It's just a number that I can use to compare to another brand. But as you know, what are we comparing?
I think watt hours is better than amp hours and runtime when it comes to understanding the availability of power on a battery tool.
Absolutely. And, what a lot of people may not know, and this comes back to what I was saying, is that 10% situation of picking information up. Our battery tools are designed, yes, we can put the biggest fuel tank you want on whatever petrol machine you want. You can run all day and top up
Yeah.
once a year and do all that sort of jazz, but it'll be 700 kilos and you have to tow it with a trailer. But, the larger commercial saws are actually designed to not necessarily run out, but designed to produce a certain amount of work output, because you yourself will get tired, you yourself will get complacent. There's more risk for injury, there's more risk for damage. That, yes, you may want to work over and over again, but a chainsaw, for example, shouldn't run longer than half an hour continuously, running up and down, because the chain may not last that long. And if you're continuously running with a blunt chain, you're going to cause damage to the machine. And I guess when we're transitioning to battery, it is trying to manage that expectation as well, so that people are getting the same amount of work output in totality. Now, thankfully, on battery, as soon as you let go of the throttle, you're not consuming any energy. So really, what we've noticed, and a lot of customers that have transitioned to battery, they're changing the way they do work. They're not necessarily starting machines and just going hammer and tongs, into a field of grass. They're sort of being a bit more methodical in how they slash or how they trim or how they manage their battery content, so that they can be as efficient as possible, and just get as many jobs in for the day as they can.
Now, I've seen this come up numerous times, and it came up most recently. I think I sent you the Instagram reel. It's real clickbaity. A young girl, and of course, you've got to have a girl operating a chainsaw if you want it to be clickbait. And she's got I think it's a 261 and a MSA 300 side by side, and she does comparison between them.
Yeah, so the reason why I had my German colleague down, it was an awesome. It was a bit of a Hall of Fame situation where us in the head office were like, "Oh my God, he's here! He's the guy that launched the MSA 300." That's his baby, and it was really cool. But the 261 used to be my favorite saw. I mean, you shouldn't say you have a favorite child, but that was my favorite child. And I guess it was one of those things where, Australian wood isn't like anywhere else in the world. America does tend to have barkier wood, but it's definitely not as dense. It's not as thick. So our saws need to be able to match our characteristics before they can work everywhere else.
We work them hard.
Very much so. I showed him what blue gum was, and he was like, "This is ridiculous. This just doesn't make any sense. Set fire to it. Forget about it."
Yeah. If Australia is harsh, then Queensland timber is harsher.
And as he was down, I sort of got to understand a bit more about how the MSA 300 was developed. And, it's one of the first battery saws that has anti-vibration systems. It has the exact same chain and bar sprocket covers as a petrol saw, so that you can use existing components between petrol and battery. It's got a fleece air filter. It's got the same power output in terms of work output as your saw. And we sort of developed, for Australian conditions, what we call the 4-to-1 ratio. So with 1 bar of oil and 2 batteries, you can fell 4 trees.
Okay.
So it's that, going back to that energy management topic, it's all right, how much work do I plan to do? I need to bring this many batteries, this much bar oil, and I'm set.
So that's with the MSA 300?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And in terms of cut performance, I sent you that video comparing it side by side with a petrol. And as I mentioned earlier, it's near as enough makes no difference the same. And in this case, the battery saw won. But it is that case of, it's very comfortable that we can give it to a commercial operator and one of our larger key account teams and say, you know what, put the petrol saw down, try this. And they will, more often than not, use whichever one's closer to them, because they'll get the same amount of work output.
Now, with chainsaws, I've found, like you, the 261 has been my favourite chainsaw for a long time, until I got a battery saw. And I wish I had the MSA 300, but it wasn't available. And the Husky 540T, their battery version of that, because they've got a petrol and a battery version, I picked that up as a pruning saw and fell in love with it. And also got a little pole saw from them that I use as well. And the pole saw, because you're pruning small stuff that's sort of like 2 inches maybe, you run all day on a battery.
Correct.
The 540T, same thing. If you're pruning 1 and 2 inch branches, be very careful pruning, by the way, because it can be operated one-handed the way it's designed, which means I'm inclined to grab the branch with my other hand, and I have,
Oh no.
yep, a
Got
little love
caught.
bite there from doing that sort of work. Yeah,
It's
dangerous stuff.
we always have a bit of an internal cringe moment, for lack of a better term, when people say, "Oh, I want to buy one of your Stihl one-handed saws." And it's like, no. We don't sell one-handed saws. We sell a top handle saw. Every single
Yes.
chainsaw is two-handed. Don't give me that.
Yes. Yeah. So my reference was it can be operated one-handed. It shouldn't be, and I have the proof. But
Look, you only have 2 arms and 2 legs, and we'd like you to keep them as long as possible. So yeah, thankfully we do sell protective equipment to try and mitigate that risk.
yes,
But going back to the saw, it's the MSA 300 is actually the world's most powerful battery chainsaw. It has 3 kilowatt output in terms of I believe it's a 2.5 kilowatt mechanical output and 3 kilowatt electrical output.
yeah, okay,
So yeah, our other saws, the MSA 220, which also comes in a top handle version,
yeah,
has the same mechanical, power output as the Husqvarna equivalent that you mentioned.
yeah, okay,
And there's always going to be the race between Husky and Stihl, and not to say full respect to their team and their product. It's always great to have 2 market leaders in that sense, much like
yes.
Holden and Ford, for argument's sake. It would be pretty boring if there was just one.
But what you're saying is you've got the market leader at the moment.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I think it looks like it's a great tool. I guess coming back to that point of going from petrol to battery, I noticed with the Husky, the moment I started cutting something a bit bigger with it, and it's a top handle saw, it's not made for cutting big stuff, but you realistically with a top handle saw with I think it's like a 12-inch bar or a 14-inch bar on it, you're going to cut maybe 6 inches. You're not really pushing it to that 12-inch length. And I cut something that was 6 to 8 inches and did half a dozen cuts, and my battery was flat. And
Yeah.
it's like you put extra load on that, and you're using the full power of the saw all of a sudden, and you can see that the direct correlation of the amount of power output it has versus the amount of power output the battery has comes into play really quickly.
You're 100% spot on. It's it really is a case of, again, what I mentioned, the energy management piece. And I guess understanding how to do that work, with a petrol saw, you sort of push it that little bit harder if the chain's blunt, or if the chain isn't tensioned, you think, bugger it, I'm just going to go for it anyway. Not that you should by any stretch, but let's be honest, people do.
Yeah.
Whereas a battery saw is designed to keep you safe. And not saying it won't do the cut, but it is that whole mentality of saying, no, stop, something's wrong. The chain's blunt, the chain's loose, something's not performing. You need to stop and reevaluate. And I guess, people are inherently wanting to take the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is just get the job done. I'll get a spare battery later, or I'll sharpen the chain later, or whatever.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the MSA 300, it has an overload feature. So if the air filter is clogged because you're cutting dusty wood or cutting with a blunt chain and it's sucking in a lot of dust, the saw will actually has a human machine interface on the handle cockpit, and it'll flash and it'll say, "Hey, you're overloading. Something's not right. You need to stop." But it'll still give you the opportunity to finish the cut, so that you're not halfway through a tree and then working in a dangerous environment. So
That
really
is a problem
designed it.
with battery, because I've noticed with a number of battery saws, if the overload comes in, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You've got to have a free running chain before you can pull the trigger again.
Yeah. So the Stihl ones Stihl chainsaws are all inboard clutches. So thankfully, if you run into a situation where the bar's pinched, or when your bar's pinched and you can't press a throttle, whether it's petrol or battery, you can take the sprocket cover off, remove the machine, and just leave your bar and chain in the tree. So
Interesting.
that way,
Yeah.
it's there. Not that we recommend leaving it there for indefinitely, but
No, but it gives you the opportunity to walk away and come back with the right tool to fix the problem.
correct, absolutely spot on. So, I guess that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is really understanding how people use machines, and I guess mitigating any risk and mitigating any concern so that you can get the most out of your day's worth of work.
Yeah.
We've also got on the 220T CO and the MSA 300 CO, the O stands for oil sensor.
Yeah.
So if you're using, again, the biodegradable bar oil, which is a light colored bar oil, it has a photo sensor inside it that'll tell you whether your bar oil level is getting low. Now,
Okay.
with your with your battery saw, sorry, let me start again. With your petrol saw, generally when you run out of fuel, you run out of bar oil.
Yeah.
With a battery saw, it's a little bit different, where you might run out of bar oil, but you may still have energy in your battery.
Yeah. So
So
you're
this,
saying you've got that 4-to-1 ratio, right? Where you get two.
yeah, that's generally what we've experienced testing locally. Of course, every tree is different, but as a
Yes.
good rule of thumb, that's a good one to use.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bar oil sensor will come on when your oil level is low, so that you're not, leaving your
Not
truck
doing
to go
damage.
do the work, or doing damage to the pump or the saw.
Do you want to leave your job to create a profitable and enjoyable lawn and garden business? Aussie Lawn Stars shares the stories, lessons and advice to help you grow a healthy, productive, efficient and sustainable business. Do you want more or simply have a question about what you heard? Contact Aussie Lawn Stars at iCloud.com or look me up, Gary Ashton, on Facebook and Messenger for individual help. Business coaching helps you to have the right mindset and perspective when it comes to daily decision making, planning, or knowing what to look for to improve your business. thinktankcoaching.com.au has helped me, and they can help you move towards your business goals. Visit their website or email them thinktankcoaching@outlook.com. If you want to establish the best practices in bookkeeping, accounting and business structure, contact Adrian from Prosper Financial on 0249 773363. And you all need to head to Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia and the Australian Professional Lawn Contractors Facebook groups for supportive communities focused on our industry.
So, Gary, you mentioned you currently run the FS94Rs. Do you mind me asking what made that transition from the 85 to the 94?
The main reason was because the 85 wasn't available. I would have got another 85. And I could throw that back at you. Why is that? Is it an emissions thing?
You're 100% spot on. We, I
Thought so.
believe in 2019, the emission standard was released. 2019, 2020. And yeah, unfortunately, the 85R wasn't able to meet those standards.
My story's a little bit more interesting than that, so I won't just leave it at that. I had the FS85R and it got a little bit hard to start, and maybe it was just seasonal or something, because like I said, it still runs and works. It's 14 years later. But what happened early on in my business, in the first winter, I didn't have enough work to keep me busy or bringing in the bacon, so to speak. So I went and did some work for a local retirement village, and they were running Husky 323Ls. So their 3 Series is not commercial. It's their landowner series, which is halfway between residential and commercial. But it was lightweight, and I loved it. And I thought, I want the lighter weight than the FS85, sorry.
Absolutely.
So I bought a 323L, and I bought a second one. And the reasoning there is that they weren't really up to the commercial specs I needed, and they didn't last as long as I thought they would. And then after I sort of realised that after buying 2 of them and going, they don't last, I came back to Stihl to buy an 85, and the 94 was the best option they had. And I was like, oh, I like it better than the 85 because it's lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think each of them have their own interesting characteristics, but that was my choice at that time, to go to the 95. And yeah, all right, I love it. The lightweight, it's got that Stihl reputation. It should last longer than the 323 that I had from the Husky. And I ended up finding out after I'd run the 95 for a while that there was a couple of things that bothered me with it. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's because it's getting old or because it's inherently built into that particular engine. So one of the things is they tend to be hard to start in really hot climates. So around here, we get regularly above 30 degrees. And if you're talking sort of 33, 35, 36 degrees or up to 40 degrees, I'll still be working. Sometimes, I don't know if it's a vapor lock. I've heard a local Stihl mechanic suggest that it comes back to the return line on the tank. And because it's sucking from the back of the air filter, they suggested changing that, and it might be easier to start.
Okay. Without seeing the machine, it'll be tricky to make that call. But yeah, if that's what your Stihl dealer is suggesting,
Yeah.
then yeah, I'd be more hesitant to say, be aware of fire danger warnings from your
Yes.
local council,
Yeah.
especially if you're not running a spark arrestor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it is that whole situation of, fresh fuel, making sure that, the machine is maintained just to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you mentioned earlier, the Australian climate, it's all over the place in the best of times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess
The
that'll affect
number of people have said on that one, if you replace the air filter, it gets easier to start while it's got a fresh air filter in it. So that of agrees with the local Stihl mechanic.
Look, a petrol engine is easy in the grand scheme of things. It's, to use the motorbike terminology, it's suck, squeeze, bang, blow in terms of what it does. And that's literally all it does. It's all the other things connected to it that make it a cool product.
Yeah.
So if it's struggling with fuel or struggling with air, it's something to do with a fuel filter or an air filter in the grand scheme of things. So they're very easy to diagnose, I guess, from a mechanical system.
A comparable machine, I've run several of the BG56 blowers, the handheld blower. Before I went to battery, that was my choice of blower. And one of them I ran for 10 years. And in that 10 years, the only problem I had with it was the little rubber valve in the carby died.
Oh, with a primer bulb?
No, not the primer bulb, just the little rubber piece inside the carby that it's like a valve, I think it is. Can't remember. But yeah, that perished. It got a little bit of a hole in it and, carby kit, and away it went for longer.
Yeah, awesome. And look, that's the thing. I mean, nothing, we could make that piece of rubber out of titanium. We could make the whole thing out of carbon fiber. It'll cost you an arm and a leg, but it may last you 100 years.
Given that is a homeowner product and I was using it commercially for 10 years, I think at the end of 10 years, it actually seized the engine. I don't remember exactly why.
Right.
It just got old, died, and I bought another one.
You got your money's worth out of it, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the comparison, what you're saying, like there's really not a lot that can go wrong with those petrol engines if you understand where the fuel-air mixture is going properly and if it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. I mean, we try to not promote playing with idle skews and high-lows and everything like that. Because you generally, again, this is just me being, wearing the Stihl hat. I tend to trust the German engineers on that side of things more so than me with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that's why we have the Stihl dealer network. If something's wrong and you can't figure it out, not expecting everyone who uses our tools to be a small motor mechanic.
Yeah.
Take it to them. They'll be able to sort it out. And if they can't, we have check sheets that they can fill out, and we've got a team down here that can point them in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, going back to the reason you asked the question about this, the 94 was my choice of tool because of the weight.
Absolutely.
And then we run into those questions about, does it have the same longevity? Do you go for a bigger tool? Like you can't get the 85 anymore. So do you go up to the 111 or the 131 or up to the 2 series? And a number of contractors are using the 111 or the 131 on a daily basis for doing vertical edges. And I have argued black and blue, that's not the right tool for doing it. It's a little bit heavy. The throttle response is not quite what you want for when you're doing the feathering with doing your vertical edges. And then other people we'll go straight up to the big 2-stroke, the big 2 series 2-stroke.
Yeah.
And use that for doing their vertical edges. And I'm like, okay, if that works for you.
It really is that Texas mentality. Get the biggest machine and just use it on everything, right? But
I think also the difference between the 4-mix and the 2-mix engines there is interesting because the throttle response on a 2-stroke, people are used to it, whereas the throttle response on the 4-mix is a 4-stroke throttle response. And it's a little bit tricky to get used to if you're trying to do that fine work with a whippersnipper.
And look, especially if you're changing between the two, you've got different team members who may be accustomed to one more so than the other. It really is about getting your whole system working as efficiently as possible so that you can, get the output that you need. One of the great things about Stihl products is it's just one fuel ratio. It's 50-1, 2-stroke, use it in everything, basically. So even if it is 4-mix or 2-mix or whatnot, don't use it in battery, of course, but I'd assume that's pretty common sense. Yeah, so it doesn't matter whether it's 2-mix or 4-mix. You can use the same 2-stroke mix all the way throughout. And you know what? Some people may prefer, I guess, that 4-mix power torque at that high end as compared to the throttle response of the 2-mix. And again, it comes down to the operator. And I guess, let's say, for example, if you had to go back into your initial business startup days and you walk into a Stihl dealership and there's, what is it now, 15, 20 different line trimmers and brush cutters on the wall, and you think, oh my God, what do I choose? We do try and make that process as easy as possible.
Yeah. Look, in my early days, so before 2018, because I mentioned that date, that's when I first started looking at battery gear, I made it really simple. I was like, if it's a mower, you use the drum that's got 4-stroke in it. If it's not a mower, you use 2-stroke fuel. Don't ask me whether it's a 2-stroke engine. You just don't use 4-stroke fuel if it's not a mower.
It's what's that saying? This is me back when I was in the shop days. You can put 2-stroke in 4-stroke, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and at
right.
the end of the day, 1 drop of oil to 50 drops of petrol isn't going to do anything to a 190cc petrol 4-stroke mower. So
I've got a friend who rides motorbikes, and he's been riding dirt bikes as well as road bikes and high-performance engines where you go, you've got to make sure you've got the right fuel in that high-performance engine. He runs a bit of 2-stroke oil in his road bikes.
Hey, if it works for him, it works for him. I'm not going to warranty a motorbike because they're using my oil. But if it works for him and he wants to go for it, then go for it.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I haven't done is to buy the motorbike 2-stroke oil that smells like strawberries and put it in my whippersnipper.
I'm always concerned. It's funny, being in the product side of things, we have to provide safety data sheets and go through that whole compliance level. And then they, like, for example, detergents, so spray detergents, we do a wide range of cleaning agents. Yeah. And generally what I've come to learn on the back end, if it smells like oranges, there's a lot of loopholes that you have to go through because of the chemical compound involved in it. So as soon as someone said, oh, smell this, it smells like oranges, the first thing I do is tend to back away because I don't know what's in it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, there's a lot of, regulation and legal requirements involved to get cleaning agents and aromatics and all that sort of jazz. So if it smells nice and it passes all that, then I'm all for it. But if you can't get that safety data sheet, maybe move back about 10 centimeters or so.
I have found that looking at something else recently. I was like, where's the MSDS? And it was near impossible to get a hold of.
That's a red flag. No, it's always the joys of it. I mean, going back to your 85 transition to the 94, we talk about the emissions changes, and it was a challenge for the industry. People couldn't buy your cheap $50 line trimmers anymore at big box stores. Yeah. But, still prior to that was always known as a premium product in the sense of we were never the cheapest. We were never the ones that would come in, but our product was made to a global level standard where the emissions came in. And other than maybe 4 or 5 products, we were good to go. We were already set to that higher standard or premium standard, if you will. So, I guess when it comes to that situation of especially regulatory and compliance, we won't introduce a product in the country unless it complies with Australian standards. It has the RCM marks. It has everything involved because, 1, I don't want to go to prison. But 2, I want to make sure that, you and other users get the best experience out of the product. And if you need to say, hey, where's the MSDS for this grease oil, for argument's sake, it's all on our website.
Speaking of still having good standards and high standards there, a little hack that I've told people, and you may not have heard this one, but I'm sure you'll be aware of it as soon as I tell you. A lot of people go for the multi-tools.
Yes.
When they're starting a business, it's like, oh yeah, you can buy the multi-tool. It might be $500 or $600 for the power head, and then you've got a bunch of tools that are $400 or $500 each. And what I did, a little hack from somebody else who was in business, not from the Stihl rep. It was not from the Stihl business. It was the side hack. Buy the FS94R. And then, go and pull the head off the FS94R, buy the multi-tool attachment you want and put that head onto the 94R, and it's a dedicated hedge trimmer or a dedicated pulse saw or whatever you choose.
Look, mechanically it will fit. Thankfully, our products are made to be quite interchangeable in that sense. Not that we would advocate for that by any stretch.
I do.
You can deal with the warranty claims then. No, it's one of those things where, when a product is released, we'll test it in the scope of delivery. So if the product came with a grass trimming head and in a specific format, then we will certify it for a certain amount of hours, for that warranty
for
period.
sure.
But if people start putting on, 4mm line, they take the guard off, they put hedge trimmer blades on it, then it's not my machine, it's your machine. If something goes wrong, you need to figure out what went wrong because I didn't give it to you that way. And I guess the benefit of Stihl products is we start the machines before they leave the factory. So when they get assembled, someone actually fuels it up, starts it, runs it. Yep, it's all good. It gets sent to the dealer. When you buy the product, the dealer starts it, runs it. Yep, it's all good. They give it to you.
Yeah.
Then it's up to you. Whatever you put in the machine is your call.
That's an interesting one you've raised there, and we need to segue through to a separate section with this. But the FS94R has been one of the backbone tools. If you're talking about the standard whippersnapper in Stihl's range, that's been the go-to for contractors commercially.
Absolutely.
And there's a couple of other tools. So your standard short pole hedger is another one, and the standard BG56 or BG86 blower have been the backbones of the industry. I went for a BR600 in the early days because I needed to do a lot more blow jobs, and that's just one of those things where you go, yep, I need more blowing power. I can blow a road or I can blow a car park out really quickly with a backpack blower. So told my employees to suck it up and deal with a smelly backpack for that one.
The old school Magnum blower. Yep.
Yeah, I've actually had two of those BR600s.
Awesome.
And one of them stopped working well because I wasn't maintaining it. Shh, don't tell you, Silvio. And I said, hey, Dad, you can have this BR600 blower. I'm going to keep the one that's working well, and you can have the one that needs the valves to be set. And I said, look online, you'll find out how to set the valves, and it'll go forever.
The professional delegation. I like it.
So now Dad uses it to look after the local church.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's like, great, it's still getting used. It's been donated to a good cause. I feel good.
Yeah, wonderful. No, look, it's one of those going about the hack side of things. Thankfully, we don't release product every week. We're not, as much as I'd love to, unfortunately, it's one of those volume, quality versus quantity discussions. We are, I guess, very efficient in what we do, but at the same token as well is when we release something where we always stand by the confidence knowing that it'll do the job that we intended to do. So, not that you would necessarily be looking at our part numbers, but you can find it on our full range catalogs. It'll be 4 numbers, 3 numbers, 4 numbers. And the first 4 numbers generally dictate the family. So your FS94R is a 4149 and then part numbers behind it. And generally every model that has that 4149 shares that family of, piston cylinder engine components as it works on through. So that's where you see that interchangeability or Frankenstein effect, if you will, where they sort of use it and create different tools. So
I guess that's one of the reasons I did that hack, because I knew that you could buy not just the FS94R, but you could also buy the same engine on the multi-tool or dedicated tool for different things. So I was like, all right, I can bypass.
Speaking of the multi-tool, have you ever tried the blower attachment?
No.
I can't. I have no idea how to market it and push this to the market more. So I'm hoping this podcast will do it. But it's that those 3 stages of blowing actual blowers. Yes, it looks weird because you look like Tony Montana in Scarface holding a big machine gun. But the blowing force behind that is absolutely fantastic. And I guess it's one less blower that you have to buy. But if anyone's I'd recommend.
Never had the desire to run multi-tools. So like I said, it's been a hack to put the different heads on the FS. But I've always had a dedicated blower, and it's like either the handheld, which now I go straight for battery power, or the backpack blower. And I've challenged every brand. I'm like, you don't have a backpack blower in battery power that competes with petrol.
Yeah, we recently launched the BGA 300, and it is lower blowing force than our, BR 700, 600, 800 onwards.
Yeah, it's more comparable to the 450, right?
Correct. Yeah, in terms of that blowing comparison, you're 100% spot on. But I guess it's that horses for courses demand. A lot of, and you'd go through this more than I ever will, but when you're doing a tender for a nursery, or you're doing a tender for a retirement village or a primary school, they may not want to listen to a blower while they're teaching class or having a nap or whatever. So you need a battery backpack blower. So we are looking at expanding the battery range. We will be showing larger, more powerful battery backpack blowers in the near future.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's as I was mentioning earlier, that minimum viable product. Once we understand what is it that people want from a battery backpack blower, how do we then make it even better? It may be runtime, it may be power, it may be both. How do we get that balance? This is where we're quite fortunate here in Australia. We're part of the tester program. So as I mentioned, if a product can survive in Australia, it can generally survive anywhere in the world, not only from our users, but the grass or the wood or whatever.
I've talked to a few people in Cairns, and I think that's the ideal test environment for some of those tools because monsoon weather, grass growth is insane.
Yeah, we had our national dealer conference there in March earlier this year, and I don't think I've ever
in the middle of cyclone.
I don't think I've ever sweat or drank as much Gatorade in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
But no, it was a great experience, and seeing the grass with how lush and thick it was really impressive.
Yeah. So some of the hacks you mentioned, and I know people listening to this will have done those hacks. So running 4mm line on their whippersnippers, and the 94R is not the right one to be running the 4mm line. I recommend 2.4 on that one. Mm-hmm. That works really well. And taking the guard off. And a large percentage of contractors remove the guard off their whippersnippers. The reason they move it off is so they can see what they're doing better and they can run a bigger swath.
Yeah, I mean, look, to launch as I mentioned earlier, we're always going to launch a product in the country that meets Australian standards. And, as much as I'd love to have a transparent, invisible mesh guard that, you can see through and everything, it doesn't necessarily meet Australian requirements. So I could sell it, but I'll probably end up in prison 3 months later, which I'm not interested in.
Well, I can see both sides of this because I can see why people do it. But at the same time, I'm not worried about an insurance claim. I'm not worried about hurting somebody with it. I am simply worried about the expectation that is on me running a commercial site. They expect the safeties to be in place.
Absolutely.
And I've seen what happens when they're not in place. And like I said, I've not seen anybody complain that not having a guard on their whippersnipper has caused a massive safety issue, but it is a safety guard.
It's in the name, right? We have another product. It's part of the multi-tool system. It's called the RGKM, which are rotary scissors. And think of it like a hedge trimmer blade, but in a circle, right? And it's just scissors. Yeah. And I guess the good thing about that is you're using hedge trimmer blades to cut the grass, but it's what we refer to as a low throw. Now, the guard is this big. It's absolutely, for those audio listeners, I'm literally making a triangle with my hands. It's the smallest guard that we offer. Yeah. But the good thing about that is you get about 240 odd degrees of cutting circumference.
Yeah.
And it means that when the blades hit the grass, it just falls. So it doesn't throw, it just falls down. So you can go next to cars, office windows, down, what are they called, nature strips in the middle of a highway, and you don't have to worry about breaking windows, chipping paint, annoying people.
Yeah.
So I guess you do get that best of both worlds. But again, it comes back to what works best for the operator. If you're been using line trimmers for however long and that's just what you're used to, and using those rotary scissors slows you down, then it may not be efficient for you. But if you're, wanting to, I guess, explore that option, that we do offer that option. Going back to what you mentioned about the 2.4mm line, the best, I guess, analogy we tend to use here is it's like an angle grinder. If you use an angle grinder and use a thin disc, that's what cuts through metal. But if you use a thick disc, that's what does the grinding and shaping, and it's generally slower in cutting.
Yeah.
Now, an angle grinder, much like a line trimmer, the gearbox can only go so fast. Yes. Squeezing the trigger harder won't make it go faster because it's limited by mechanical spindles and gears and everything else.
Yeah.
So putting a thicker line on, have you ever spun like a young child, when you sort of stand in a circle and you spin them? And it comes to that age and weight threshold where they're too heavy or too long, and you go, "Oh, this is so much work." It's the exact
same. I've got 4 kids, and they're most of them are adults now. My youngest is 15. And yeah, it very quickly reaches that point where you go, all right, they want to jump on my shoulders or they want to be swung around, but okay, it's the older kids. Sorry, can't do that anymore. It hurts.
Correct. And unfortunately, it doesn't come with a physio appointment afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, putting thick line in a line trimmer is much like spinning a heavier and older child because you're forced to use so much more momentum. And it's really interesting. I'd love for you to do this experiment is get your line trimmer, with whichever battery machine you use, and just run it with 2 mil, 2.4 mil, and 3 mil line and just see how different the run times are just by using that change.
Well, look, I've done this, and I've got several different battery whippersnippers. So one is designed to run heavier, thicker cord, and one's designed to run the lightest 2 millimeter cord. And people laugh at me when I say I use 2 millimeter cord, and it's like, you know what? The 2 millimeter cord is awesome. It may
Absolutely.
not last as long as thicker cord, but it is so easy to use it.
And that's
And
the thing. The cord, there isn't necessarily one option for all either. You've got different shapes, you've got different cuts. I mean, we offer a cord that comes as standard on our battery machines. It's basically a low noise cord.
Yeah.
Because you're using a battery machine, there's no point in having a high pitch, coming out of the bottom end. So,
do you know what the name of that cord is?
I think it's just called low noise.
Okay,
I can give you the exact name.
Because I've used the CF3 cord.
And what did you think?
I like it.
Oh, wonderful.
So with the 2 millimeter cord, I've tested a lot of 2 millimeter cords. And sorry about this, but on a Husky whippersnipper. And the preference on the 2 millimeter cords that I've used is the Husky Whisper Twist.
Yep.
So the CF3 lasts longer than the Whisper Twist, but the Whisper Twist runs less vibrations and less noise. So that's why I'm curious about the one you're talking about, because if it's not CF3, I'd be interested to put it up against the Husky Whisper Twist.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to send you a link, but nevertheless, we do offer it. We recently just launched our new brand website, and we're just continuously adding more and more items on there.
Yeah.
And of course, in my infinite wisdom, I decided not to bring my price book with me during this chat. So here I am going through a Bible of a catalog.
Oh, good.
But yeah, we do offer a low noise nylon line equivalent. But, we also offer X-shaped line if someone's doing a lot of clearing work. We offer the CF3 line, which is, for that longevity discussion.
Yeah.
Again, it's depending what the operator wants to do.
Yes.
Depends on what you select.
Yeah, and with the battery tool, that quiet, low vibration cord is awesome.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I always think back, it's actually not necessarily, yes, it is about you, but it's also about your customer. Yeah. You want them to keep calling you, right? So if they've wanted a battery operator or a low noise environment, why are you using the most noisiest line? Well, give them what they want, right? So that way you get more business.
I did a real estate office for quite a while. So they have lawn around their office and some hedges that need trimming, bits and pieces. And they were the most difficult people to work with because I would be there during business hours. And they're like, oh, can you do it outside of business hours? And I'm like, well, give me a key. Oh, no, we can't give you a key. So the day I turned up with battery tools, battery blower, battery whippersnipper, are still using a petrol mower, but the battery whippersnipper and the battery blower and hedge trimmer, they're like, we don't care if you're operating during our early morning business meetings because it doesn't bother us at all.
Correct. And this is the thing. I think, one saying that I get caught out mentioning a lot is if you don't ride the wave of innovation, you'll drown underneath it. So if you're competing for a tender and it is a real estate office in this case, and you're saying, I'll use all petrol, but someone says, you know what, I'm going to charge X amount more, but I'm going to use all battery. It allows them to start earlier. It allows them to finish later. It allows them to work in those situations where it is in noise sensitive environments and win that business.
Yeah.
So I guess from a brand perspective, my only job is to give the dealers a solution that you need. Because you're the one buying it, right? So, yeah, if you go to your end users and your contracts and you say, you know what, your problem is that you're currently, in a noise-sensitive environment, you have this one particular application that needs this particular tool, I can offer that tool. My job is just to give you that tool.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the safeties on some of those tools. When you move to battery tools, operator safety often gets dismissed because you don't have that noisy petrol engine and lower risk with most things because you let go of the trigger and the tool stops. I was out on a motorbike ride one day. This is going back a couple of years. And one of the guys said, "Oh, my wife's just cut her hand with a hedge trimmer and got to go and see her. She's gone to hospital." And I was like, "That's nasty." And I said, "Did she grab the bar thinking it was a bar, like a short pole, and she's just grabbed a hold of the blades?" And he said,
no.
"She wouldn't do that." And before he left to go and visit her, he said to me, "Yep, she grabbed the blades just like it was a pole."
Yeah. That sucks to hear. No, it's, with a mechanical tool, you have the safety interlock and then the trigger. Generally, I'm looking at a line trimmer right now, and we call it the shark fin design because it has a little shark fin that comes out. With battery tools, they'll generally try to have 2 to 3 points of activation so that you can't accidentally start it. So a chainsaw, you have the chain brake as well as the trigger system, and generally there's a button that you have to press as well. And again, it comes back to that whole thing with user safety, and it's not us being difficult by any stretch. It's not Australian standards being difficult, but if you cut your arm and you can't use a tool, then I can't sell you any more equipment, right? So
that's it.
You need to keep your hands and limbs and whatever else so that you can keep providing a service to your customers. And my job is only to give you something that's going to keep you safe and be able to provide that service.
Yeah. Well, when I was training my employee to use the chainsaw the other day, it was a case of going, that shark fin design that you're talking about, that's a dead man switch. So you can only operate it when you're hanging onto it. And I was showing her this is not a one-handed saw. It is designed to be used with 2 hands. And here's how the blade, the bar brake works. If you get kickback or anything, that blade brake is designed to stop that chain spinning instantly.
Absolutely. No, I think chainsaws, they're seen, and not to take the conversation back there, but they're seen as this scary thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and, all these horror stories. But they are actually incredibly safe. They've got handguards, they've got inertia kickback. So basically, even if your hand isn't there to activate the chain brake, because if you're cutting sideways, if there's enough inertia in the kickback, it'll actually activate the chain brake for you. Yeah. So they've come a very long way from your 088 or 084 back in the day. And thankfully that's, that whole user safety requirement. I mean, chainsaw is only going to do what you tell it to do. So if you point it at your leg or another person, it will go through that object. So that's why we do offer that suite of protective equipment, whether it's chainsaw chaps or pants. And we've got, again, different options depending on who's using it and what they're using it for. As well as the head protection and gloves and everything else. And I guess the question for you, this is always a topic of discussion that we have. Yes, I'm sitting in a studio. I'm not necessarily using the tools as much as I'd like to be, but when we go out, I'm full head to toe in PPE and I look like one of the people out of a catalog and it's all great, head to toe and still. I guess in your common sense, in your common day-to-day task, you mentioned there are a lot of users who don't use guards and may do things a little bit cowboyish, for lack of a better term. What's your views on using, I guess, head protection or glasses? Or is it commonly one of those things where you'll go into Bunnings and buy the cheapest pair? Or do you specifically seek out, I guess, something that meets Australian standards or looks for specific features?
Yeah, so because I'm operating on a commercial side, I take operator safety really seriously. But again, to suit the needs. And I'm one that likes to wear short pants almost all year round. And I wear short sleeves unless I've got a jumper on. So some of my operator safety, I'm like, well, I can't operate some of these tools if I'm sweating from head to toe because I've got heavy clothing on. So I've got to work out that balance of how do I make sure I do the right thing. I wear prescription glasses, so I specifically choose glasses that have got a fairly good wrap around. Some of the actual ones that are listed as safety glasses that are prescription, I find them painful to work with. So I try and find something that is safe. And then when I see an employee go to pick up a whippersnipper without some sort of glasses on, it's like, no. And, they don't offer this yet, but I think you could start implementing it. What's the brand? The vacuum cleaner brand. They started bringing out a device that gives you clean air to breathe.
Oh, okay.
Dyson. they've got this crazy looking device that goes on your face, and it's
Yeah, you look
Yeah.
like Scorpio from Mortal Kombat. Like it's the
Yeah.
full. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
If you're whippersnipping, you might get, even with the guard on, because I always have the guards on,
Mhm.
you might get a gum nut or a branch flick you in the shin. And with short pants, you might bleed a little bit. And I'll put up with that. I'll go, okay, the risk for the benefit is worth it. I'm not going to chop my legs in half with a flying debris. There had been occasions with lawnmowers where it might be possible, but with the whippersnipper, no, I'm feeling safe still. But you have a gum nut go up your nose.
And look, this is that thing where my only job is to provide the solution. So we do offer face shields with earmuffs. We do offer brush cutter dedicated pants with inserts so that they protect your shins, and hedge trimmer pants that protect your thighs, and
Yep.
all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, you're the one spending the money. You're the one that decides whether you wish to purchase it or not. So it's hard to say, hey, you must do this. But
During COVID, I was actually told at one point, commercial site, you have to wear a mask no matter where you are.
Mhm.
Outdoors, not in contact with other people. No, you still got to wear a mask. And the benefit was you don't have stuff flying up your nose.
yeah,
So I'm still waiting to see somebody use the Dyson face shield.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that quite expensive? The face
Oh,
shield?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not actually, like, the primary product is not actually the face shield. I think it's the earmuffs, and then the face shield are attached to the earmuffs. Like,
I'm
so
not
you
sure
can
what
listen to your music on the earmuffs, and then the face shield attaches to that.
I'm not sure what the impact rating is, but I can tell you now, yeah, someone else can test that product, and
I don't think
we'll
it's a
figure it out
safety
from there.
device. But I don't think it's cool either. It just would be really interesting to see somebody using it in an outdoor environment to reduce dust and debris.
Hey, there's a few warehouse staff and construction staff that use those exoskeletons. So who knows? That might transition to outdoor power equipment at some stage.
Or they might come out with a specifically industrial protective rating for one that we can use.
Yeah, well, that's true. I think that comes to that point where you were mentioning, at what point do you just transition to robotics?
Well, that's a great transition, because I've put in place several robotic mowers to reduce the amount of man hours that are required to keep the lawns tidy. And that's the primary purpose of it.
Yeah, I'd love to know how let's be honest, Australia is still in its infancy when it comes to robotic mowers, let alone robotic vacuum cleaners, right? We're sort of going from inside the house to outside the house. How did you, I guess, get on board with robotic mowers? What was your journey down that path?
Well, the initial onboarding was a case of doing the podcast, and had several people reach out to me. Oh, would you be interested in having a look at robotic mowers or talking about them on the podcast? And I was like, nah, not interesting, because my primary listener is a lawn contractor, and they're not going to use a robotic mower. And then Husqvarna was like, yeah, we've got a couple of lawn contractors we can put you in touch with that use robotic mowers to do exactly what I'm now doing.
Mhm.
So I haven't been using the Husqvarna robotic mowers on my own jobs, but I have done an install with a Husqvarna robotic mower. I've done a bit of work with a Stihl robotic mower, IMow. I've done a fair bit of work with the Ambrosio robotic mowers, and I've been doing a little bit of work with the Segway as well. So the gateway there for me was going, on a commercial site, I just need to have the place looking good all the time. So if I've got to do it by labour, I need to have one person there all the time, plus another person when it's really busy in the middle of the growth period.
Yeah.
Several robotic mowers there that are doing the key high presentation areas, and they look good all the time. Some of those areas, I would put the ride-on mower on one of those areas in particular, and this is going back 2022. We had a lot of rain, and it was boggy. And I had the grass growing a foot high in between being able to mow because it was so boggy. I put the robotic mower on there as the first test unit, and it mowed it all, didn't get stuck, wasn't getting bogged, and it just always tidy because it's out there cutting every day.
Wonderful. I think it is one of those things, going back to what we mentioned earlier, anyone can cut grass. As you said, you can go to a big box store or get your mum's mower and just start cutting grass for cash. when you sort of evolve the business and start chasing those bigger fish, for lack of a better term, you do need to start offering a solution. And sometimes you can't put a ride-on mower to cover a large area, and you can't have the time to dedicate to cover that area whilst managing the rest of the team. I mean, hiring staff, getting them a vehicle, it's expensive. Yeah. But buying a robotic mower, installing it, and checking on it once every few weeks, it's the easiest solution you can do to have that stream of income.
Well, when I first looked at them, there were several variations between the early robotic mowers. The better ones tended to be capable of doing around an acre of mowing, capable of handling a little bit of a slope. But as you would be aware, most of the robotic mowers being a skid steer operation, slopes are their enemies.
Yep.
And then there's different types of blade configurations, and one or two of them are running GPS, not for systematic mowing at that stage. That's come more recently, but more for just being able to go, okay, I can tell where the robotic mower is and do a very generalized, it hasn't done this area for a while, send it back to that area to do some more mowing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the cool things about this particular category is it is taking the whole industry into the future. Each brand's intellectual property is different. One brand may do one thing really well, but the other brand may do another thing really well. So, competition is always good. And each product has its own pros and cons. And I guess as the product category evolves, it allows all of us to adapt and improvise and create those solutions again. So no, I think I love, personally, I've got a robotic mower, and thankfully this podcast will be launched after the date, but I did purchase it for my mum for Mother's Day, because it's one of those things of, as she ages and she doesn't necessarily live too close to me, I don't want to be driving back and forth and mowing lawn.
Yeah, fair.
Set and forget, I'll check on it every however long and get the prompts to change the blades, or if it gets stuck or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it is that whole situation of, you think time is money, and you say, do I buy a ride-on mower for $10,000 for argument's sake?
Yeah.
Or do I just install a robotic mower and, just do the edges every now and then?
And look, that conversation has been key. I've got several robotic mowers I've paid money for. I've installed them because their purpose is to save me money.
Yeah.
But I've got one that's a Segway, which the purpose of the Segway is to prove whether the new technology is really great. It does the systematic mowing, no wire in the ground. And I thought, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test it on my parents' property. And like you, the idea of going, okay, I can just put it there, leave it and forget it. And I told mum and dad, I said, I'll put this on your property to test it. It'll be here for a few weeks and we'll see how it goes. And, testing proved what their good points are, what their bad points are. Not perfect, and they've made some improvements on that over the time, so that now it's even better, and they've taken feedback from me, which is great.
Wonderful.
I took it off mum and dad at the 4-week mark, and they just about cried. They're like, oh, we're going to have to mow the lawn again. Don't take it.
It's funny. We so our mowers, our new range of IMows that we're planning on releasing, what we're noticing a lot in the European market is they become a member of the family. It's almost like a dog or a cat or whatever. They get names. People get really innovative and they put kennels around it. I saw this one person put like a paper mache tank design over it, so it looks like a tank's riding in it. It's really cool. I mean, it just becomes that member. And if it's something that's making your life easier and you take it away, it's like if I took your touchscreen mobile phone off you and said, hey, you have to go back to the old school Nokia. You'd be like, no, stop. What do I need to do?
Yeah, but having this machine, which I've been doing demos for different people, it's been interesting to get feedback. So the question is, on a small yard, you're comparing it to a $1,000 to $2,000 self-propelled mower. Do I buy a $1,000 to $2,000 mower that I've got to walk behind, physically do the work? Or do I get a robot mower that's coming in at that price range or up to double that price range? And then slightly larger properties, so that machine can do close to an acre of mowing.
And I guess
that comparison's the ride-on mower, and more expensive.
And I guess from a commercial perspective, do you look at this and say, all right, I'm going to go to this customer whose property is perfectly suited for a robotic mower and say, I'll come out once a month for, I don't know how much you charge per month, but I'm just going to throw a number out there and say it's going to cost you $100 for me to do what I need to do. How about I lock you in for a contract for 2 years and your lawn will be perfect every single time. You'll never have to listen to me do it. I'll install the robotic mower. It'll be out of the way. And when I come in, I'll maintain the mower and I'll do the edges. I'll do the hedging. And that means you're not sacrificing time to do the lawns, but you're actually spending more time on the rose bush. You're spending more time on clearing gutters. You're spending more time on washing out the driveway, which they may have never ever done before.
Yeah.
And you're giving them that really premium service at what is essentially the same price, but you're committing them for that longer period and therefore helping your business as well.
Yeah, look, I've talked to a number of people about this exact question. Is it feasible? Is it a good option? And the answer is yes, but there are some caveats there. So one person that I've interviewed, he's up in Mackay, and he's been doing exactly that. He's taken the cheapest possible robotic mower he can find and installed it on about half of his residential customers' backyards. Didn't put it down beside the fence doing the roadside, but doing their backyards. And then he turns up, he mows the roadside, whip snips the edges, and does any maintenance of the mower whenever it needs it as well. So the business model, yes, it works. And the cost of the mower will come into that somewhat. The difficulty of installation will also come into it. And then the plausibility of that mower doing that yard without having any problems will be the next big issue. So can you set up a robotic mower to do that yard and it won't get stuck? And for instance, on my commercial site, one of the robots is constantly finding little rabbit burrows where the rabbits come in. They make a little burrow, the front wheel gets stuck in the hole, and I've got to go and rescue it.
Absolutely. No, I think it comes back to that discussion, what we were saying about wired versus wireless. Not to say that one fits all. Each of them has their application, much like a tractor ride-on and a ZTR. They both do their own job. You wouldn't necessarily pick one over the other for everything. But yeah, it really is that point of, wireless models are fantastic. Large open paddocks, no shade, no interference, perfect GPS signal. It'll do the job. There's no questions about it. But as you know, with Australia, you've got 20 different tree species on one domestic property, tall fences, tall hedges, tall buildings, whatever. That's where it might get a little bit tricky. And, we do thankfully have that option to offer a wide solution where, yes, the install time may take longer depending on which, wireless model you're comparing it against. But you have that, I guess, reliability of saying, you know what, it's installed, it works, and I don't have to worry about it because it's done the test run. I bought a bag of mulch with me or a bag of soil. I filled in the holes. It's ready to rock and roll. I can see it again in the next 4 months or a month, and it'll be exactly how I left it.
I guess people naturally will lean towards, I can buy a robotic mower where I don't have to pay somebody to install it. That sounds easier. But the fear that they probably didn't realize in thinking that, and I've seen this come up with a number of people and with robots that struggle with this, is working beside a road or on a hill where it might end up outside of the boundary, where if a wire's there, it's got a clear path. This is what the issue is. This is where it's going to stop and won't function past that point. Whereas the wireless one, it's like, oh, what will happen if it ends up on the road or in the dam or somewhere else? So there are issues, like you say, particularly if the wireless system has a, let's pretend we know where we are until we get good signal again.
And look, you're 100% spot on. It really is a case of what solution does that customer need? If their fenced area is I'm picturing like a tennis court, where it's got that the wire fence where it can't necessarily go out of boundary and it's a nice flat piece of grass. Fair enough. A wireless model will do the trick. But yeah, to the same point as well, if it's surrounded by trees along a massive driveway and paddocks and, there is that risk that it could potentially go out on the road, then, it is that decision-making process, almost like a flow chart. You say, does it run this risk? Yes, I need this product. Does it run that risk? No, I can use that product.
Yeah, and that's where having a specialist who understands the model range that they can sell, and preferably multiple brands, that allows them to provide a product that works well.
Yeah. I mean, never say never. Right now we offer only wired options, but it's still a solution for all.
Well, it's a moving market.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season.
Ethics and integrity and all that fun stuff that me as a Stihl product manager, thankfully, I don't have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I find the older I get, the more I face that. And I think
motorbikes.
10 years.
Go back to motorbikes. That's the best way to think about it. You've worked hard all your life. You've earned the money. Motorbikes is the answer.
That is it. That's
Correct.
a good way to deal with it.
The way, it's funny. It was one of those YouTube shorts that you see day in, day out. But, someone said, you've got 55,000 seconds in a 16-hour window of a day. Yeah. Would you give someone $60 proactively for wasting a minute of your time? And you think, no, I wouldn't. It's like, oh, well, how much time do you think about something that doesn't add value? That's how much money you're saving. I was like, all right, race car and motorbikes. I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's a really important way to look at life because facing addictive issues, you're literally doing that. You're literally throwing your life at an addiction, which takes you away from your family, takes you away from your motorbike or your car or whatever's important.
Yep. It's the addiction of two-stroke for us, I think.
I should include this in the podcast.
Yeah.
When I started looking at battery gear, I had a conversation with a lady in Sydney, and she was very supportive of introducing battery gear into lawn care and to the point of helping people get a hold of mean green battery zero turns.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a chat to her and I was like, I really like the environmental impact of reducing running petroleum-based equipment. And I said, but I've got a two-stroke motorbike and there is no alternative.
Have you ever... And not that I'm supporting this with the Stihl logo on my chest by any stretch, but have you ever seen those bicycles with a chainsaw motor stuck on the... Yeah. it's alarming how many inquiries we get on a basis saying, do you have a bicycle kit or whatever? And let me preface it now. We're not doing it. I'm not advocating it, but it's quite funny how many machines will get back with chain sprockets on them.
With the advent of the e-bike, I would have thought that would have gone away.
I'm just waiting for someone to stick a battery motor on it.
Yeah. But I guess the ultimate would be if you've seen the petrol-powered esky.
Oh, yes, where you sit. Yep, I've seen that. Yep.
Do that with a Stihl 880 or 881.
Let's get the esky started and then we'll work from there. No, thankfully our recent promotion was we were giving away eskies with specific products sold. So we'll start there and work our way up and add wheels. And
if it's got the Stihl emblem on the esky and then somebody adds a petrol engine on it.
Yeah.
Lovely. So we were just talking about the different things you can do with robotic mowers and which different models offer different advantages. But when I started looking at robotic mowers, I had a quick look at the original IMows in Australia, and I think there were 2 or 3 models that came to Australia at the start. One of those models seemed to disappear fairly quickly and not be available. And I heard a couple of people making mention of, you don't want a bar blade under your robotic mower. You want razor blades under it. And I was like, well, there's not just Stihl has the bar blade under theirs, but also the Ambrosios that I've been using have a star blade, which is, solid blades, and they offer some advantages.
You're 100% spot on. When we introduced the IMows, they were the RMI 422P and the RMI 632P.
Yeah.
And much like what I mentioned with our naming conventions, the 4 series, 22 centimeters wide, and 6 series, 32 centimeters wide.
There you go.
And yes, they had a solid bar blade. Similar to what you'd find on our battery lawnmowers.
Yeah.
But they were designed, and I guess this comes to that whole, people are concerned because much like what you do with a petrol machine, you might run over a stump or a brick or whatever, and you run the risk of bending the crank.
Or a pet rabbit.
Yep, that going back to the pet topic. And yeah, it is that, there is a real concern, but it's not necessarily, I shouldn't say relevant, but it isn't necessarily real for a battery mower, because when you do an installation, you check the whole field. So you'll remove a rock, or you'll set the guide wire to go around a tree stump, or whatever the case is. So if it hits a gum nut, the blade isn't spinning that fast that you're going to have to worry about it. And I guess that's the benefit of a robotic mower is, think of it like you get a haircut every single day. You're not taking off inches at a time. You're literally just trimming the surface. So you don't need the most powerful motor and the most powerful blade and whatever else, because it's under a significantly low load. So if it does hit something like a gum nut, it'll generally just stop and move along. And that's if the gum nut can actually get under the towards where the blade system is, because a lot of our machines will have like a channeling effect or a bumper, sort of push it out the way.
Yeah, like a little plastic rake that helps to push obstacles out and just let the grass stand up.
Yeah. Well, this is the other thing is, you were talking about, I guess, that journey for a robotic mower, and, not every property is necessarily suited for a robotic mower.
Yeah.
In Australia, we've got gum trees like you wouldn't believe. And if your lawn is covered in gum nuts and fallen branches and leaves, it may not necessarily be suitable for a robotic mower. And,
well, that's one of the things I've found, right? So one of the robots that I've installed on my commercial site, it has a number of places where it gets stuck on tree roots. And it's like, okay, I learnt the hard way about the install, and okay, do I then build up the soil around those trees so that it's smoother, or do I isolate that area and not let it cut that area? But that's using a star blade on the Ambrosio robotic mower for that one. And what I've found, if you're running the popular robotic mower system is swingback razor blades. If you're running swingback razor blades and you get a lot of leaves falling from trees as they come into autumn, then the razor blades don't cut the leaves up a lot. You'll get a lot of leaf buildup in those ones. Whereas if you've got a solid bar blade like the IMow or the Ambrosio, they tend to mulch the leaves up much quicker and keep the lawn looking nice and tidy. So there's advantages both ways on this. The swingback blades offer more safety, less likelihood of getting stuck on some things, whereas the solid blades do a better job with lawns that do have a lot of leaf fall on them.
We're just about to launch our new range of IMows, the 5, 6, and 7 series.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the evolution from the existing 4 and 6 series. But they will be having swingback blades. And I guess the benefit on the existing IMows and the new IMows is that they're bi-directional. So if it does come into a situation where every single time it starts, it spins one way, and then when it starts the next time, it spins the other way. The benefit is that you've doubled the life of your blades. And using petrol lawnmowers, that those swingback blades will only last so long.
Yes.
And much like a robotic mower, even though it's doing extremely light work, it just doubles the life so that you're not, again, we're offering that solution. A lot of people that install a robotic mower want to save time.
Well, another thing I've noticed with the swingback blades, having done a demo machine where I just put it on a property for a few weeks, the initial few mows with the robotic mower are really hard on those swingback blades because it's got to get the grass conditioned to being cut at that height on a daily basis. Yeah. So that means the blades get worn out quicker, and the pivot point on those blades is taxed a lot heavier as well. So once you've got a mower that's been there and it's doing it and keeping it and maintaining the lawn the same, then the damage is a lot less. So the blades will last, instead of 2 or 3 weeks, the blades will last 6 to 12 weeks if that lawn is kept and maintained by the robotic mower.
And when you install a commercial machine, or even for other properties, do you set the lawn, like do you do a maintenance mow first and get the lawn to a place where you can just substitute it with a robotic mower, or do you just set the robotic mower out and make it get the lawn to a specific level?
Yeah, that depends on the installation. So if I'm doing it for demonstration purposes, then I probably don't do a height set first. It's probably a case of going, okay, we'll show you what this thing can do and how quickly it gets it under control. With the robotic mower itself, it's going to be taxing on the blade. So
understood.
But if I'm setting one up as a permanent then yeah, definitely it's a case of going over it with the normal mower first, getting it all nice, and then just maintaining it with the robot.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, it was interesting. Because you're right. We have had people install a robotic mower, and the grass has been a paddock. It's been inches long, and you think, "What are you doing? You need to stop. Let's start again."
I had
yeah,
a
no,
request for one out Tamworth,
Mhm.
and the request was, "Oh, can you do a robotic mower around the house?" And he's got, I think, 5 acres in total. So he was asking for a 1 acre area around the house to be done with the robotic mower. It's like, no sweat. I said, but how about we set up several robotic mowers so they can do the paddock area as well?
Mhm.
It'll do it, and it'll make the whole lot look like a golf course then.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's, having that consistency all the way throughout. We've had a few vineyards that will have the restaurant area or like the communal play area or the entranceway maintained by a robotic mower. And then, the rest of the paddock is just done by the groundskeeper or whoever it is.
Yeah.
So, it is that differentiation between the two that really makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely.
So, the going back to the IP discussion, and, each brand does their own thing. But
yes,
with the new range that we're looking at releasing, we'll have the base model and the Evo model, which is what we refer to it. Generally, like a white and a black model that you'll see in the stores. And we've taken all the feedback from the existing 4 and 6 series and basically started again. So every single component on the new IMows is completely brand new, except for the front caster wheels. Taking feedback from dealers, taking feedback from global markets, from customers, people who've installed it, and rewritten the book. So we're very excited to get this product out there.
Yeah, so is that available now, or is that just in the stage of release in Australia?
We've just started training our dealer network, who have opted to jump into the IMow program. So your existing IMow dealer should have access to IMow by the time this is released, or will be in that journey of getting qualified and trained up.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So so you're going to have those 2 ranges for each of the product numbers. You're going to have the standard one and then the Evo.
Yeah, so we'll have the IMow 5 Evo, 6 Evo, 7 and 7 Evo. And then, of course, we're looking at expanding into that on either end of the spectrum. More entry-level machines for, again, people like my mum wanting someone a quick and easy installation. And then also for, larger commercial sites where, we can look at maintaining a football pitch or a soccer oval or large paddocks of lawn.
That's an interesting space there, because the majority of machines available are either small residential or up to 3/4 to an acre.
Yeah. Correct me, an acre's 4,000 square meters from the top of my head?
Approximately, yes. Very close.
Yeah. So the 5 series will do 1,500, the 6 will do 3, and the 7 will do 5,000 square meters. So we do have that spectrum.
If I understand correctly, the Evo and the base model in each of those will do the same area, right?
Correct. It's more about the speed and efficiency in which they do it in.
Okay.
They're, somewhat the primary differences. It'll also mean that the Evo model can handle larger slopes, especially when you put the upgrade kit with the traction wheels.
That's
so
important.
It really depends on getting the right machine for the right job.
Yeah.
Speed is roughly about 10% faster. So if you're more the person who enjoys spending time outdoors and walking in your lawn, it's one of those things where it'll get the job done quicker so that you can be outside more. And then it also has 3 guide wires as opposed to 2 guide wires. So essentially it means that you can set those different activation zones to better suit your property. So I guess it's going to be a challenge for us in Australia, in that, as I mentioned, that Texas mentality of bigger is better. The bigger one may not necessarily be the best option for your machine. So this is why we rely on our fantastic dealer network to guide you in the right direction, so that you're not necessarily wasting money and buying something you don't need, but you are also getting the best thing that you need for your job at hand.
That's been the biggest thing I've found working with robotic mowers, is the concept that people have in their mind about what a robotic mower does versus what they do really well.
It's funny. I remember when we first launched battery mowers back in 2009, 2010, a very, very small machine. And I remember selling it in store, and people said, "Oh, my grass, it's like concrete. It's like this." And I'm like, "Well, I sell concrete cutters as well. What are you doing? why is your grass this all of a sudden? Are you growing sticks or something? What's happening?" And yeah, it's quite ironic that Australian mentality of not that it's wrong by any stretch, but we do generally have denser wood, we have denser grass, we have thicker lawn. It grows exponentially for no reason whatsoever. Sometimes it won't grow at all.
Yeah.
So I guess it is trying to change that mindset of saying, you know what, the product has been tested. It's been validated around the world. It has been validated in Australia.
Yeah.
If we're not confident in selling it, if we don't believe it'll suit the market, I'm not interested in taking up space in the warehouse to sit on, a dead duck.
Well, one of those things that comes up on that front is in the community, there's massive debate between do you mulch or do you catch grass?
Yeah.
And this is outside of the scope of a robotic mower because they're all mulching the grass. They're just cutting the tiniest little bit off each time. But people have this mentality, like you say, of my grass is like concrete. And I've grown up and lived in New South Wales most of my life, and there's a little bit of cooch in my lawn.
Mm-hmm.
But I recognised early on when I started doing this commercially that if I was using a reasonably powered ride-on mower, mowing it flat out, maximum speed, which might have been 10 kilometres an hour or something like that, and all of a sudden you hit a bit of cooch, the motor goes,
and the belt slips.
If you're mulching, it's hard work on the machine to mow
Absolutely.
that cooch compared to mowing buffalo or kikuyu. And then I've had this argument with Queenslanders over I can mulch lawn and make it look perfect. And they're like, well, you obviously don't have Queensland cooch.
Look, you're 100% right. It's, like I said, there's no one fit for all for anything, really. And that's why we do have a range of products.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really is about getting the right product for the right application. To make that work. It's interesting when you talk about mulching, especially when we discuss it on a global level.
Yes.
The Americas and Europe, mulching to them is 50 mil. So that when you put your foot on the grass, you can't see your foot. It's a nice thick grass and the white picket fence and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas when, we bring our international counterparts in Australia and we say, this is an Australian lawn and you almost need a microscope to see the grass, they sort of think, what do you mean? This doesn't make sense. So it is trying to change that mindset. But what we are noticing more and more is that people are going to that convenience side, because you're right. If you are mulching that really low grass, you have to be out there all the time taking care of it. It's borderline cylinder mower to some degree.
I've found the really significant difference, and I think cylinder mower describes it well, but the significant difference between international and Australia is I would describe what we do on a residential lawn as sports turf.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
It's comparable to what you're doing on a sports field in terms of the height of cut. But then take what you said there and go, okay, well, in America, most of the professional lawn contractors there are cutting weekly when they cut for the 3 months of the year when they actually cut.
Yeah.
But we cut fortnightly for some reason. And I'm trying to educate Australian contractors to go, well, we should be cutting weekly on most residential lawns. If people were doing it themselves, they would do it weekly. So why do they only want to pay you fortnightly to cut their lawn? It should be done weekly too. So if you want a lawn to look really good, the more frequently you cut it, the better it looks. And particularly when you're doing a low cut lawn, so below 40 mils, 30 mils is not uncommon around here.
Yep.
And even lower. If you're going cylinder mow, then you get down under 10 mils if you're really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be cut weekly or twice a week even. And then if you've got a robotic mower and it's out there cutting it 7 days a week,
perfect.
It looks fantastic.
Absolutely. You're 100% spot on. And this is that, I guess going back to that battery transition, someone goes from a petrol mower to a battery mower. And yes, it is changing from swing back to bar blade and different cut heights and everything. And they say, I used to mow every month with my petrol machine. And yes, it would bog down. Yes, it would struggle, whatever the case is. But you have to understand that the tolerance and the I guess the performance difference between a petrol and a battery machine is, it's designed to be, I guess, somewhat safer for you and the unit. And if you're cutting knee-high grass, it's going to struggle. You almost need a brush cut and slush it first and then mow over it, to get that finish that you're looking for. And it's a change of, user application and the way people use the machine more so than the machine itself.
Well, interesting you talk about that, because one of the first things I looked at when I started doing large commercial contracts was the brand Mean Green. You would have heard of them, no doubt. And I've done a test ride on a mean green mower, and they brag about the amount of battery power they've got in that. You can get two options, the large one or the small one, but the large one they're claiming over 7 hours. 7.5 hours runtime seems to be fairly specific, but that's what they would claim, right? And I'm like, that's awesome. If you can do 7.5 hours runtime, there's not a lot of people who are sitting on their mower for more than 7.5 hours in a day. If they're doing a 10-hour to 14-hour day, they're probably still only doing 7.5 hour runtime on the mower. But it's awesome. And then I asked them, I said, so can we cut some 3-foot high grass with it? And they claim as much as 6 hours runtime cutting tall, thick grass like that. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense from what I know about battery gear, that you can go from 7.5 hours down to 6 hours. I would expect it to drop down to 2 hours runtime when you put all that extra load on the motors.
You'll notice a lot of runtime charts, and goes back to what I said earlier. I hate putting those numbers on a chart, but it'll always have a caveat of up to, because no one's using it in the exact same application, and it's hard to say this is a definitive yes or a definitive no.
So I don't have the experience with a battery-powered zero-turn, but on my battery-powered whippersnippers, hedge trimmers, chainsaws, all those sorts of tools, what I've found as a single employee on my own, I could potentially get away with 2 batteries for a whole day, depending on the type of work I'm doing. 3 batteries would get me through a whole day comfortably when I was using mostly just the whippersnipper for the battery tools. Once you start going to blowers, then you start going, oh, I could use 10 batteries in a day potentially. And this is why I go to the backpack petrol blower for any of the big blow jobs. It's just straight up, if I'm doing a car park or a road or something like that, then the petrol blower is going to move things, and the runtime on petrol is going to be worthwhile. Whereas at the moment, not so with the battery.
And look, that's why we still offer petrol backpack blowers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We found that in Australia, a lot of crews will vary between single operators to, a council truck where there'll be 5 or 6 people in a van.
Yeah.
And what we found is that, each vehicle, whether you're sole or in a fleet, will need between 6 to 12 of our batteries to do a full day's worth of work using the handheld equipment.
That sounds about right for me.
Yeah. And this is that discussion, generally, like I mentioned earlier, you tend to build a choreography between the team. You sort of say, I know I can do X amount of edges. I know that I can do this lawn. I know I can do A, B, C, D with this battery. And you tend to sort of make it so that as you finish your run, you've depleted your battery, you swap it over and you swap the tool at the same time, and then you do something else. So it really is about efficiency of the battery, also the operator and the job, and it creates that whole systematic effect to get the most out of the tool and make it a solution for yourself.
Traditionally, with my Husqvarna batteries, I've gone for their biggest cartridge battery, not gone to the backpack battery. Biggest cartridge battery I could fit on the tool, and just gone, yep, deal with it. It's not heavy and it's reasonable. And some people are complaining, going, it's a bit heavy. And I'm like, okay, if you're running a hedge trimmer, run the next size battery down and you save a bit of weight. But with the whippersnipper, I want the biggest battery possible, and then I want as many batteries as possible. And that's been my traditional way of dealing with that. But recently, what I've been able to do is go, okay, I can carry a charger with me. And on a commercial site, it's no sweat at all to have somewhere to charge the batteries while you're working. So you can go, all right, back to 2 or 3 batteries. And I can have a battery on charge or a couple of batteries on charge even, and cycle through them throughout the whole day. If there's 2 employees, then you might need to double it. And the Ego tools that I've been using, I've found I go for their 5 amp battery for whippersnipping and hedge trimming a lot. I go for their 7.5 amp battery for the blower, and you'll probably know this better than I do, right? But if you're talking same voltage but different amp hour batteries, the higher the amp hours of the battery, the better it delivers the current too. So if you plug a 2.5 amp battery into a mower and you overload it, you can flatten that battery in 5 seconds. Whereas you plug a 12 amp battery into that mower and you overload it, and it just absorbs it.
Yeah, it's generally the demand of the motor. So the motor will say, I need X amount of watt hours to run at my peak performance. Yeah. And if there's, voltage times amps equals watt hours, if you don't have enough for what the motor's demanding and you have it on full throttle, you're right. You're asking too much of the battery. But if you do have more than enough, then it will run comfortably. But again, it comes back to, I think it's that transitional journey. if I said to you, the government has implemented a restriction, you are no longer allowed to buy petrol, you have to buy battery, then you would think, okay, just give me these products. But thankfully, we're not, dictated by that. So you can start your journey, I guess, having a slow charger, having a lower capacity battery with just a hedge trimmer. And then as you build more comfort and as your product and experience and demands grow, you can keep adding on, because the good thing is all of our batteries and chargers on the AP range and the AR commercial range, they're all interchangeable. So you can use a slow charger, you can put it in a hedge trimmer, you can put it in a mower, whatever the case is. So you can,
on that blower, the blower that I use is Ego at the moment. I've got a Husqvarna and I've got an Ego on the battery blowers, but I've found the biggest battery by weight that I can handle comfortably gives me a good balance between runtime and full power usage, so that have you heard of sag? As the battery is on really high current draw, it actually depletes really quickly, but then when you let it sit for a minute, the power comes back up to a stable level after the sag has disappeared.
yeah, so each, I guess, brand has their own intellectual property when it comes to their battery management system. I guess one thing that we pride ourselves on is, again, going back to the innovation piece from our German colleagues and the way that they've designed everything is, as the voltage drops over the runtime, the current will increase so that total watt hour capacity is the same. Yep. So what you'll notice with our machines and something that we're really proud of is the power. It's like a fuel tank in a car. The power you get with 100% charge and 20% charge is the exact same. Whereas what we've noticed a lot of competitors, and I'm not going to name names by any stretch.
No worries.
If you're holding onto the throttle for more than 5 seconds, the power for that first 5 seconds is quite high and it hits the advertisement that they make. But surely at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds, the power drops off significantly.
Yeah.
And I think that's because there's no global standard in advertising and I guess performance metrics, they can do that. Whereas what we believe that none of our battery handheld tools or the batteries themselves, so our AP range of batteries, they shouldn't ever weigh more. The battery itself should never weigh more than 2 kilos, because you have to carry that battery. It's a physical weight. So when you combine it with the whole system, it does complete that ergonomic and performance package.
Yeah.
Now we can make a battery 100 amp hours and we can make it recharge in 53 seconds and do all these things, but the thing's going to be huge, it's going to weigh a ton, it'll be noisy, it'll be all this and that. So it really is about making it so that no matter which tool you use, you're as comfortable as possible, so that you have that capability to finish that job and still keep coming back to our tools.
And I think I've used quite a few different brands. I've specifically tested a number of battery blowers because I think it's really interesting. They're the thirsty battery tools. Yeah. So I've tested a number of different brands, and you certainly notice that with some of them more than others, that you get that really peak power at full charge, and then it really disappears as the battery slows down, and more noticeable sag as well, depending on the way the battery's configured. Battery management systems are vital in these days. That I know there's some things I've seen where a battery management system is non-existent, which means you run the risk of depleting that battery below a safe standard or overcharging it. And that's where lithium battery fires have come from.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Thankfully, all of our commercial range of AP batteries are IPX4 rated. And you'll notice a marketing campaign coming out shortly where we show that we put it in a concrete tumbler full of dust, full of dirt. We spray water jets on it. The drop tests involved behind it are what you as a commercial operator do. Sometimes it falls out the back of the ute. It happens. Sometimes you're working out in the rain. But you shouldn't ever be in a situation where you say, oh, there's a light drizzle today, I can't work because my tool will flood. That's not reasonable. So we're never going to release a commercial machine that can't work in a commercial application. Because at the end of the day, the Stihl reputation and the brand integrity is so high that we're never going to disappoint you as a commercial user to give you something that we can't stand by.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that I've found really critical is that getting through a day with the right batteries is something which takes a little bit of thought. And when you're using a blower, that's one of those tools where you really notice it in terms of your battery consumption. So planning battery consumption and recharging around those things is vital. If you don't have access to charging while you're in the field, then you need to have enough batteries to get through a whole day, whether it's you on your own or multiple people. At the moment, I would say for most contractors, they would be able to find somewhere to charge during the day, even if they're doing residential yards. And some of them will go down the path of setting up a charging system in their trailer with solar and battery power banks in their trailer. The one that I find interesting and curious whether I'm sure you've got limits on what you can talk about, but a number of brands are starting to experiment with DC-DC charging.
I mean, look, like I said, never say never, right? We are exploring working with local businesses to develop a solution. As you know, Australian utes aren't necessarily the same as international ute trays and whatever else. So that's where it gets a bit tricky, and that's why we need to look at local solutions. But it really does come down to return on investment. You know, you're a small business at the end of the day. If a mobile charging solution, by the time you get a second battery, an inverter, panel, wiring, you're taking up real estate in your trailer. Let's say if I said it costs $6,000 as a guess, 7,000, is that about right?
Look, I've heard varying numbers, but I think I've spent $3,000 on a small system, and that's a pretty capable system, but it's not going to get a 2-person team through a day.
So that's the thing. Even if a battery is, let's say, $500, independent of the brand, that's 6 batteries that you could buy ahead of time. And if you only need 3 a day, I think the maths is in itself. So the other consideration, of course, is how much space, if you're taking up space with chargers and everything. And I think the perfect example is, if you're strategic in your mowing run, and let's say each job is, 6 minutes, 10 minutes away from the next job. If you use a battery tool, the battery itself gets hot. And as you mentioned, you work in 30-degree plus days.
It's got to cool down after.
You put it in a charger. The charger's not actually depending on the battery management system, the battery shouldn't be charged until it cools down to a certain level.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to your next job, you'd be lucky to get 2% extra charge in it. So it may almost be a redundant exercise. Not saying it is, but you may run that risk depending on the type of applications you work with. Now we do have one.
This is where DC-DC charging gets interesting, right? If you can manage the battery heat and you can recharge quickly, then you need less batteries.
Correct.
But Australia's always going to have a 40-degree day that you've got to deal with.
And the other thing is, how much is that going to cost you, right? And you know what? You're right. Do you put that money in a DC-DC option, or do you just buy more batteries? Yeah. It really is that key point of discussion. We've got this one commercial contractor who is out in the bush, nowhere near anyone, has to go out basically camping, and he's allowed to use a petrol generator on his campsite, but he's only allowed to use battery equipment on the work site. So he takes his battery equipment and he charges it with a generator on the campsite, and he goes back and forth. So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's not one that you come across very often, but hey, he has a problem and it's my job to come up with a solution, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where I would be looking at whether a solar recharging and a battery power station would help him get through the day a little bit more efficiently rather than going back and forth in between.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
But yeah, it's got to be financially viable as well as efficient to operate while you're out in the field.
Oh, for sure. And that's the other thing is, we recently launched, and it's probably the greatest product since sliced bread in my opinion, but it's a battery carrier, and you can stack 3 of them together and you can use tie down straps and everything. And the amount of people that send us photos with the battery carrier in the cab where it's nice and warm, it's air conditioned, it's perfect temperature, because they need the space in their trailer to put a mower or to put a blower or to put a hedge trimmer or whatever the case is. You want to make sure that you are utilizing your limited retail space.
I think in Australia, that battery carrier option makes a lot of sense. And from the point of view that last 2 weeks ago, I was in Victoria. It was freezing cold. A few weeks before that, it was almost 40 degrees. So you start going, okay, do we have from any of the brands a battery carrier that's got a level of insulation and heat protection and cold protection so that the batteries are operating at their peak condition when you're ready to go?
Yeah, we do offer a sustainer box system, and they come in 3 different sizes. So we have small, medium, large. And the small one comes with a blow molded case, so you can specifically store batteries and chargers and whatnot. And the large one is for our larger backpack battery cartridges. Not saying you can't put anything else in there. We have a lot of arborists that will put chain maintenance and whatever else in it, which is great.
Okay, yeah.
They're not insulated, but they do have that protection against the elements.
Yeah, awesome.
You can't put it underwater, of course, but it does protect from general spitting and whatnot.
Yep.
But we also have that, like I said, if you can store the batteries undercover, whether they're in the cab or under a ute tray or you're in a van, we do have that option of it carries 6 of our AP batteries, and you can stack them 3 high and then just strap it down as well. So that way it's a solid structure in the vehicle.
Yeah, that transport of batteries is, I think it's going to become more and more critical as we see the more people use them, the more likely there are to be issues with people not transporting them well.
Yeah, and look, thankfully we've had an almost non-existent failure rate on our batteries in terms of catastrophic failure that you may see on the news. So yeah, thankfully we like I said, we'll only release a product that's safe. But as you can imagine, the wider media tends to tar us all with the same brush. So yeah, we do have to, mitigate that as best as possible on our end to make sure that we're still making sure that customers are safe and confident in our product.
I've got a lot of friends who are anti-Tesla, and they're always looking for the latest Tesla fire. And it's fun to go, well, yeah, there's been a Tesla that's caught on fire. There's also been a GM, Chevy, something else that caught on fire.
They mustn't have running petrol. Summer gnats.
Yeah. But hey, we've been going for 2.5 hours. I want to bring this to an end, wrap it up fairly quickly. There's one product that I wanted to ask you about.
Please.
To sort of finish this up. So I don't know if it's coming to Australia. I don't know what you can tell me about it, but I'm going to ask you and just hope that your boss isn't going to stop you from talking about this. It's an RZA 700.
Yeah, so we're really excited about this product range. For those that aren't, aware of the product code, it's the new range of battery zero-turn mowers that have been released in Canada and America. Awesome. It's the first time Stihl has gone into zero turns, let alone battery zero turns. And I guess the difference, we've been talking about cartridge batteries this whole time. This is a integrated 24 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So iron, I-R-O-N, not I-O-N, which is the similar battery technology that you'd find in, a lot of EVs. And it's designed to have that battery technology for that duration and longevity and runtime. Because like you mentioned, when you are using a ride-on mower for 6 to 8 to 10 hours a day, you need that longevity to be able to get that job done. And unfortunately, lithium ion is not at that stage where it can deliver that performance, whereas the new technology that we have in these zero turns is ready to rock and roll. So we've just received our second sample in Queensland. Today, we are currently going through the certification process to make sure that everything is all hunky-dory from a legal perspective, as I mentioned. And then, we're going to begin testing and taking it out to various people all around Australia. And
well, you can drop it off to me for a couple of weeks.
I'm sure we definitely will. We'll do a bit of an exchange there, but very excited to see this product hit the market because, it's launching a new product category is always fun. Launching a chainsaw is one thing, launching a whole new product category is another. But at the same token as well is I bleed orange in the sense that when I see someone using Stihl equipment and they're head to toe in Stihl, but then they sit on a competitor ride-on mower, I tend to get a little bit cross-eyed. So
but I want to ask a cheeky question. Is this related to the Stihl acquisition of Ferris, or is this completely independent of that?
Completely independent. Thankfully, I shouldn't say thankfully, but Stihl hasn't acquired Ferris. We're still running as independent businesses. Ferris is owned by Briggs and Stratton.
Okay,
to the best of my knowledge, and there's a disclaimer there in case I'm wrong, but Stihl, these battery ride-on mowers have nothing to do with Ferris, thankfully.
No, there you go.
On our side, so Good
Interesting.
question. Nevertheless, hopefully that's going to stop the rumor mill happening out in the industry. But yeah, hopefully that clears that side up.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of people wondering when a Stihl branded Ferris is going to come to Australia. So
We have explored the petrol range of zero turns. I got 9 of them down here in Knoxfield.
nice.
Again, we will explore everything available to us.
Yeah.
If it's something that you want, we'll see if we can make it happen. But of course, we need to make sure that everything works on a longevity. I mean,
Yeah, of
you
course.
have the confidence of going into any Stihl dealership with your 084 and you can get spare parts for it, even though it's decades
that's it.
old. We want to make sure that no matter what product we release, we can still support it with those spare parts. And if you're investing $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in a ride on a zero turn, we want to make sure that we have the spare parts to last you that reasonable length. So at this stage, the petrol mowers are not something that we're considering. And again, never say never, but at this stage, we're focusing all of our time and attention on the battery range of RZAs.
Yeah, well, I like that, but I think there's a lot of people who want to bleed orange like you and have the petrol option as well.
I may have 9 samples that I need to get rid of, so I'll start collecting numbers.
Well, I've got your direct phone number, so
do a Gumtree special.
Perfect.
No,
I love it.
Gary, thank you so much for your time and your opportunity. I appreciate taking 2.5 hours of your time and your listeners' time as well, and appreciate everyone who's tuned in.
It's been awesome to talk to you, Silvio. We'll have to chat again sometime and talk more about motorbikes.
Wonderful. I love it. I think I might need to invest in another race car and invite you down to Victoria. We might meet in the middle at Winston or something.
It sounds perfect.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. All the best, mate.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.